Good morning to all present here, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's made it for our second year in a row Godrej Annual Investor Meet 2025. We have an exciting lineup for you today. We have our entire senior management. We have Sudhir and Asif who will be speaking to you. But before we go into that, a quick safety AV.
Welcome to Godrej One, corporate head office of Godrej Group of Companies. Before proceeding to premises, we would like to brief you with essential safety, security, and health measures. Take note of the closed-exit routes as displayed in the area that you will visit. Emergency instructions. In case of emergency, it will be notified through the siren tone and public announcement system. Pay attention to the public address system about instructions given out on how to handle the emergency. If the emergency requires an evacuation, it will be notified.
Great. We'll start off the day with our chairperson, Nisa, who will be addressing us. Post that, we have our MD CEO, Sudhir Sitapati. He'll be talking us through how he's thinking about building India and the entire console business, a growth engine for the future. And then we'll have Asif, our CFO, and President GOM to talk about how we are thinking about strengthening our international businesses. Today, we also have an exciting segment for you. We will talk about some of our creative capabilities, and we'll have Dalsha Dirani from CNBC, from Network 18 Group, who will be kind of interviewing our creative ponchos here. And on top of that, we'll also have live experiential showcases for you, where you can actually go touch and feel the products and actually sense what Godrej Consumer Products are all about. So with that, I call upon Nisa.
Problem of being short. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's so good to have you here again today, and we're looking forward, to sharing the plans for the year ahead and to hearing your perspectives. Around this time last year, when the group had its separation announcement, Sudhir had sent me a very nice WhatsApp message saying, now let's be wildly successful. And I really loved that two words, wildly successful, because I think it really captured, Sudhir's aspiration and my aspiration, and the reason Sudhir, sort of came to GCPL to really transform and move the company forward. Poor fellow now. Every time we have a discussion on anything, I can always frame it in, is it wildly successful? So whether it's good or bad, that's the new framing. But if I have to be, honest, when I look at this year's performance, it definitely doesn't feel wildly successful. And frankly, it's really below our expectations. And I do think we had some googlies from the external environment, including palm and costs, and we've seen sort of volume growth in FMCG broadly. But I think in categories, but I think we also dropped a few of our own balls. So I think in categories like HI and DOs, which hopefully I think we've owned those gaps, and you'll see some better, stronger performance in Q1. And I think the main learning is that we've learned in this slow market, we need to just move a lot faster. I think that said, I also wanted to touch upon that there are a lot of things we're really proud of this year also. In India, we've seen extremely strong growth in categories like air care and laundry, and this is, over multiple years. We've had these 2 new lighthouse factories come up, one in Chengalpattu in Tamil Nadu and one in Madhya Pradesh. Our market shares have also been very resilient, and we've seen many, strong penetration gains across most of our categories. In the international business, I think Indonesia and LATAM both had steady performance. International margins were up 400 basis points. And I think the piece in the international businesses, which I think the team and I are most excited about, are some of these, what I would actually say are wildly successful SKUs, and how do we double down on them? So if you take products like Air Pocket, shampoo, hair color, and Goodnight Electrics, that business outside of India is about 400 crores and is growing at a 60% CAGR. Another thing that I was particularly proud of is, as parts of the world step back on things like sustainability and inclusion, GCPL this year got ranked second globally in FMCG companies in the DJSI with an 83 score, something that lots of teams here have worked very hard on and that we're very proud of. And things like our women representation for white collar went up 200 basis points to 28%. And overall as a company and at the board level, we remain gender balanced. Another thing we're very excited to share with you today is our new pet care business and our newest Godrej brand, which is Godrej Ninja. So today we're not just reporting our results, we're here to show you both our conviction and clarity we have, and of course, for you to see also where we've course-corrected where needed, where we need to double down, and the idea that we really do want to build to be wildly successful. Once again, thank you for being here with us. Looking forward to an engaging, open discussion and lots of questions from you all. And I hope you enjoy the day. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me clearly? Is it on? Okay, super. So thanks for that. Okay. Thanks for that, Nisa, and welcome to everyone. Wonderful to have so many people here. Someone was just telling me over breakfast that we are one of 2 companies who does this regularly on a regular basis, and it's a good thing to have all of you here every year and for us to kind of reflect on the year gone by and share the plans for the year ahead. I think before we talk about the year, I think one chart on the quarter gone by. I think the quarter gone by in the context of the market was a reasonably resilient quarter, reasonably good quarter. I think our consolidated volumes grew at 6% organically, sales grew at 7% organically, and EBITDA grew at 1%. Standalone, which is our India business, grew 4% volumes. Non-soaps at high single digits. HI was actually in double digits. We'll talk about household insecticide, how much of it was due to season, how much of it was due to the relaunch, which last year at this time we kind of spoke about. And we had 8% revenue growth in India. Our Indonesia business continues to remain stable. I think between 5 and 7% volume is what we expect, slightly on the lower side, but it was good. GAUM and our international markets we'll talk about. Through the year has had a big turnaround in terms of profitability, and having now corrected the portfolio, we are now seeing growths come back to our international businesses. As Nisa spoke about it, 2 new factories. Both are big factories which you actually got after 30 years. We've put this kind of capex in factories in South and North, and a launch of Godrej Ninja. So this is just the highlights of the quarter. I think the big news for us in the quarter was certainly good performance in household insecticide in India, and we hope that the next few quarters continues to be good so that we feel we get onto the right momentum. Having now kind of done with Q4 25, let me speak about the full year, which was FY 25, right? So last year we had kind of guided for this, which is standalone in Indonesia. We were hoping to do high single-digit volume growth. In the rest of the world, we said our focus is not revenues, the focus is to step up structural profitability. And we said we will try and grow our consolidated EBITDA at 15%, mid-teens is what we said we tried to do. Our report card on this is, broadly speaking, below our expectation. We grew volumes in India last year at 5% and Indonesia at 6%. So I would still call it an amber given the context of the slowdown that we didn't expect in India. Indonesia was roughly on expectations. India, I didn't expect the kind of slowdown that we saw in the market in second half. Step up of profitability, which is our second strategic agenda, which is to make Africa, Latin America generate cash and then finally pay back dividends, has been a very strong progress this year. Our consolidated EBITDA growth has been pretty much a disaster. We've grown EBITDA, I think, by 1% or 2% for the year. It has largely been, not largely, entirely been on account of India. And within India, it has largely been on account of what happened in September in palm oil, where we had a double whammy of an import duty hike of 20% and palm oil prices going up at the same time. Normally, when the duty goes up, the palm price is correct. But what happened on September second week is both went up, and we had a sudden shock in palm oil prices, which kind of basically has not even yet, we've not recovered it as palm goes down. It was a short spike. It spiked in September and it's broadly come back now to where it's been. But that really cost us a lot. And I think when we saw it, we know that this kind of thing happens. And we didn't want to make any radical changes to our business. And we said we will absorb the losses for 6-8 months, or not the losses, but we'll absorb those costs for 6-8 months because things will return to sanity as they indeed have as we speak. So that's our scorecard for FY 25. I would still say strategically it's been a good year for us. Optically on profits, it's been a poor year. Standalone, both. Now the thing is that India, 5% UVG is not bad, but certainly not what we want. My personal aspiration remains double-digit UVG. We did 7% in FY 24. I was hoping to do 7-8% in FY 25. We did 5. Some of it is because of a slowdown, but some of it is also because when you have this kind of palm inflation, even if you take up some amounts of prices, that you have to cut grammage, pipelines thin down. And I think we lost 1.5% of volumes, leave alone margins, because of the palm oil inflation. And then I think we lost some amount because of some things on our part, which I'll talk about, and some of it is because of slowdown. So I think these are 3 reasons why what could have been an 8% volume year in India ended up becoming a 5% volume year in India. So that's how I think I would read the year. Within our business, you can see that our home care business, despite HI only performing well in quarter 4, still did well on the back of Fab and Air, on laundry and air. And personal care driven by soaps did poorly last year. This is a great story. I think a lot of compliments to Asif and Jose, who are running Africa and Latin America. I think the brief we gave them was, first get the profitability right, then we'll worry about revenues. So, we had to remove a lot of revenues. We exited our Kenya business last year. In Nigeria, we looked at unprofitable SKUs and said there's no point in having businesses which are unprofitable and just for revenue's sake. And I think our international margins, Indonesia, Africa, US, Middle East, LATAM is now up to 17. This, I think, can go up further over the next few years. Africa and LATAM in particular have been extremely strong performances in terms of margins. A lot of it is because we have shrunk that business to a size where we can make money in the business. And now I think it's time for us to grow again now that the structure of profitability is good. So this is something we're quite proud of. I think one of the things over the last few years that we're proud of is in all of this, and we'll talk about a chart on growth and growth being below our expectations. But in a situation where growth has been tough to have in India, we have focused on cash flow from operations. So our soap business has, 6 months was tough, but has structurally improved profitability. Our RPI, our relative price index on soaps, has gone up significantly over the last 3 years. So we have taken a call to take up prices on soaps and to compete there at higher prices. We have significantly reduced our inventory holdings. I think now our inventory in India is best in class. And there's been a lot of great work done by the finance team on cash management from tax perspective. So while the PAT, and I'll show you, doesn't look great, our cash flow from operations has actually grown at a CAGR of 20% over the last 3 years. This is a number that is actually, at the end of the day, the really important number is to keep growing free cash flows in the business. And I think on this front, we have done quite well for ourselves. I think the green shoots in household insecticides, we had a good quarter in Q4. It was a good season as well. But we have now a clear measure of how seasons are and how much can we spread season. So that's an important thing, because you can have a bad season and a good season. Do you spread a season? Typically, we haven't been spreading seasons. So if the season has been 102, 103, we've been growing at 102, 103. Q4, the season was 103, 104, but we grew at double-digit volumes. And in fact, on electrics, which is the core of the portfolio, the growth was actually in very high teens. So that is the spread even over, and this is the one that we relaunched. There's a lot of concerns. I personally felt that if it had to work, it would work in February, because we launched it in August, September. Really, we spoke to you guys around about this time, but it was before we launched it. These things take 5-6 months to work. Certainly Q4, I still don't want to call this a victory and all of that, but certainly Q4 has been a very good performance for us. It also gives us a lot of confidence I'll talk about, because we've also seen, one is of course growth, but growth can always be because of season. We could have read the season wrong. But we've also seen very, very sharp market share gains in Q4. So a combination of those two tell us we're on the right path here in any case. I think this is, after looking at a 1 year, I thought I'd put up a kind of 3-year report card. And I would say that in the context, it's been a good but not great, certainly not, as Nisa calls it, wildly successful, but I would say a solid performance in the context of how FMCG has done. Our consolidated revenue growth at 5% is nothing to write home about. A lot of it has been because we've shed stuff in Africa. So if you take our standalone business, in a 3-year period, we've done 7%. Again, I would have hoped for 9 or 10, but 7 is okay. And 4% UVG, again, I would have hoped for 5, 6. Last 2 years, we've done 6% UVG. The first year, which was FY23, we did 0 UVG. I think the gross profit has been at 10% growth, which is good. EBITDA growth is 8%, and that's because we have significantly increased our A&P spend. So if you remove A&P from EBITDA, because we've also got overhead leverage, which is an underlying metric, that number has grown by 12%. So you just remove EBITDA from A&P from EBITDA and see the growth, because A&P at the end of the day is an investment in the future volumes. Our profit after tax looks poor, but that's because the book tax has been significantly higher than the cash tax. So if you look at cash flow from operations, that has been 21%. Our penetration and market shares have generally been good. The only place where it has not been good is in overall HI. Actually, within segments also it's been good. Overall HI, we continue to lose share because the market is reshaping towards incense sticks. March was the first month in a long time, there have been some exceptional months in the middle, where we actually held share of overall HI, which means the combination of our shares in incense sticks and the combination of our gain of share in non-incense sticks has given us an overall mix which has held share. And we are the only organized player to hold share actually in the month of March. I mean, for the maths. And the total shareholder return has been about 17%, which is about 15.5% of share price appreciation and about 1.5% of dividend flow over the last 3 years. So this is, I would say, a balanced scorecard. I would say on most things good, but we've got to grow faster. I think that in the next 3 years, because, fine, we've got the portfolio right, a lot of it right, a lot of not so good revenues out of the books. But now our India volumes have to grow faster than 4% as they've grown over the last 3 years. And I think that is the real challenge going forward for us. I'm now going to quickly talk a little bit, before I kind of deep dive into India, on our manifesto. This is our manifesto. This is what most of our presentations are centered around. It's our purpose, our values, a very simple strategy of category development and simplification, our philosophies and measures. I thought I'd give you a little bit of examples of each of these because this is what is our compass. I met somebody who's been consulting with Danaher for many years. And I said, what makes Danaher such a successful company? And he said that they have a strategy document which has in large terms not changed for 30 years. So the whole organization has internalized it. I don't think that's happened yet in Danaher terms, but certainly that's our objective. So let me talk about our purpose and our values. In terms of our purpose, which is to bring the goodness of health and beauty through innovations, actually last year has been a really good year for us in terms of innovation hit rates. We've moved our innovation model from many small innovations to few big innovations with higher success rates. So we had Fab, which is a blockbuster innovation, Aero, which a lot of people use it. I see it increasingly in cars, Goodnight Agarbatti. All these three, by the way, were in Q4 of last year, but they played out this year. Shampoo hair color in Latin America has been a blockbuster hit. And we launched Stella Electric Refills, which is an innovation we're launching as we speak in India, which has also been a big hit, which is an air freshener, but it's like an LV and you put it in the electrics and it's done really well. And as we speak, and you guys will see it in the demonstration, we're launching. So 5 innovations across the company. Each of these contributed 50% of our kind of organic growth. So 2.5% of our volumes this year have just come from these 5 innovations, with Fab being far and away the biggest of the lot. So that was really our purpose. Our values, these are our values. It's a 128-year-old company, and these are the values that have held us in good stead for such a long time. Just 3 of those values. One, which is trust. So again, in September, we had the question mark in our mind that the oil prices have gone up. Shall we cut media? And it's not hard when you're at 12% media to cut 3-4% media. How difficult is it, right? You can just go down. You can still show. At the end of the day, we ended India at 23.5 EBITDA. It was not hard to get to 25.5 EBITDA. You just knock off 200 bips. You're still not going off air. But we said no. And even in this year, while a little bit of percentage media has kind of flattened out, absolute media, we have not cut, even in Q4, with the worst of our margin. So I think that is a principle that we have stuck to, and we will do that. I think entrepreneurship, 2 new factories, massive scale factories in 1 year, we've set them up. They've rolled out. They will give us significant cost savings in this year and next. And to be bold, we had we were looking at categories of the future in India. Deodorants and fragrances was one of them. Laundry liquids was one of them. Pet was one of them. But we said, hey, should GCPL do pet? And, we're an HPC company at the end of the day. And I was, having lunch with Balram, who's the CEO of Agrovet. And he brought up the topic saying, I can make great pet food, but I can't sell it. And I said, look, we can sell it, but we can't make it. So then, we kind of moved really fast. We set it up. I think we announced this 6 months ago. And lo and behold, today we're in the market, albeit in TN. But I just want to give this as an example of the speed. Some of these things work, some of these don't work. But I think the important thing is you take a big vision saying, okay, this is pet care. This is going to be big 20 years from now. We're roughly there, right? We can get too strategic to this thing. But as a group, we've roughly got skills here. We can come together and then move fast. Don't debate too much. You'll see the mix today. And I'm sure we will have issues in the mix. But I think the important thing is, when you have a big TAM, you enter the space. Over a period of time, if you're there, you'll work out. This is our new manufacturing facility in Tamil Nadu.
Our new manufacturing facility in Tamil Nadu is more than just a factory. It's a testament to our commitment to innovation, sustainability, and inclusive growth. The support of the Tamil Nadu government and the guidance team has been pivotal in making this vision a reality. This facility is designed with eco-friendly initiatives, including renewable energy, water conservation systems, and waste reduction practices. This facility will create meaningful employment opportunities for the local workforce with a 50% representation of women and 5% representation from the LGBTQIA+ and people with disabilities community. The plant features highly automated, high-speed production lines that operate 2x to 4x faster than our current lines. The facility will embrace Industry 4.0 technologies, including IoT for real-time data analytics, AI, and machine learning. All this in a record time of just 13 months, a true testament to the dedication and collaboration of all involved. Welcome to Godrej Chengalpattu, where progress meets sustainability and opportunity meets inclusion.
So that was Godrej Chengalpet. So that was really kind of our purpose and values, our strategy. You can write it on a visiting card. Category development. We will enter categories that are underpenetrated. We have some exceptions like soap, but those are legacy. But everything we do will be about developing categories and simplify our lives in order to focus on category development. So a few examples of category development. This is our fourfold category development model: relevance, access, availability, and forcing trials. And I want to give two case studies of the same product, which is liquid vaporizer, which was very big in India, but very tiny in Indonesia and very tiny in Bangladesh. We said, look, if it's working in India, it has to work in these markets. So in both these markets, we said the first thing is we looked at the price in India, and we realized that the price in both Bangladesh and in Indonesia was 2x the price of India. So we were making really high margins, but not selling anything. India, we make reasonably high margins. So we said, look, let's not reinvent the wheel, bring the price down to India price, right? So we brought the price down. We then started doing the same pieces of communication in Indonesia as we do in India. But in Bangladesh, we were flexible enough to say that that market was a market which was largely a coils market. Bangladesh is an aerosol market where we needed to get repertoire with LV. And the fear of aerosol was a fear of safety. Whereas in Bangladesh, it was largely a coils market. It was what Bengal was 30 years ago and hasn't upgraded from coils to electric. So we said maybe the same piece of communication won't work. And as I'll show you, we ran different pieces of communication. We did home-to-home sampling. Again, this is a model that we've perfected. Go to the house and sample it. And in both countries, we've had really phenomenal results. For example, in Bangladesh, we've said high volume, double-digit volumes, but actually our volume growth's here in the 30s in Bangladesh. It has now become our single largest SKU in Bangladesh for us has now become electrics. And similarly, in Indonesia also, it is growing at that same rate. So these are not growing at just double digits, they're growing in the 30s and 40s. And there's been an explosive growth over the last 2-3 years. Exactly what happened in India, by the way, a decade ago. There's no difference. When Godrej was having its golden years between 10 and 15, what was driving it was Goodnight Electrics, and the same thing is happening in reasonably large countries like Bangladesh and Indonesia. So these are the two ads. The Indonesian ad is the same as the Indian ad. The Bangladesh ad is different.
Tidur dengan lelah.
Hit Goodnight Electric. Jangan biarkan nyamuk dan asap mengganggu kenyamanan dan tidur lelapnya.
কি ধোঁয়া! ভাই, সিএনজিটা একটু সামনে নাও না। বাবু, এখান থেকে চলো, ওইদিকে ধোঁয়া।
দিনে যখন ধোঁয়া থেকে বাঁচাও, তাহলে রাতে ধোঁয়া কেন?
তাহলে
গুড নাইট লিকুইড মেশিন, এটা মশা তাড়ায়, ধোঁয়া ছাড়ায়। গুড নাইট লিকুইড মেশিন।
So the second case study has been really air care in India, which has again been on explosive growth. We've gained significant market share over the last 2-3 years, 20% odd growth, massive penetration. 250 bips looks low, but it was a category that was penetrated 200-250 bips. It's now doubled. And market share has almost gained 700 bips. Simple relevance, which is the understanding that people adopt this category when guests come home, which is why Diwali is the time in which this category does the best. Access, many examples, but one example is the 99 rupee Aero, which brought down the price of car air freshener from 300 rupees to 100 rupees and has now exploded in cars. And again, home-to-home sampling. Our model of trials is large-scale home-to-homes. And this is the Aero ad, really been a very successful innovation for us last year.
गाइस, राहुल आ रहा है और उसके साथ कोई लड़की भी है।
क्या? वो क्या सोचेगी? गाड़ी में वो पुरानी सी स्मेल है।
रिलैक्स गाइस, पेश है नया गोदरेज एरो।
गोदरेज एयर। न्यू कार।
गोदरेज एरो विद स्मार्ट रिलीज जेल, नई कार जैसी खुशबू पूरे 30 दिनों तक सिर्फ 99 रुपए में।
गाइस आज फैमिली मूवी नाइट है। आर यू रेडी?
नो नॉट रेडी, मेरे तो पैर कांप रहे हैं।
मैं ना कोई अच्छी मूवी ढूंढती हूँ, हॉरर या रोमांस।
तुम कौन हो?
मैं हूँ गोदरेज एयरमैटिक ऑटोमेटिक एयर फ्रेशनर।
खिड़कियों, खुशबू को बाहर मत जाने दो।
रिलैक्स, मैं हर 10 मिनट में स्प्रे करती हूँ।
गोदरेज एयरमैटिक 10, 20 या 40 मिनट में ऑटोमेटिक स्प्रे करे और घर को रखे लगातार खुशबूदार।
तुम कब फ्री होती हो?
कभी नहीं।
अगर रूम्स बोल पाते तो गोदरेज एयर ही मांगते।
All these, by the way, all our advertising, as we'll see in the panel discussion, these are all done in-house. I think case study number 3 is shampoo hair color, global scale-up. It was a product that, frankly, we were caught a little napping in India. We were not the pioneers, but we've been the pioneers in globally rolling this out. A lot of the profit success that you see in Latin America in particular, but even in Indonesia, has been driven by the success of shampoo hair color, which is a great innovation. We seem to have again, relevance, I'll show you the ad. It's basically colored hair in just 5 minutes. So it's about the importance of sometimes 5 minutes is the relevance trigger. It's a cheap product in any case in terms of access. This distribution is less in terms of sampling and much more in terms of distribution scale up and visibility. And everywhere, including India, this has gained market share and grown the market as we speak. So this is the Issue ad. It's actually a Latin American ad which we are running in India. Maybe I showed it last year, but some of these things are worth repeating because we run these ads for a few years.
Vamos, Flor. Me tengo que teñir. Dame 5 minutos.
¿Teñirte el pelo? ¿En 5 minutos? No hay chance.
Tenés que mezclarlo, aplicarlo, esperar. En serio, Flor, vamos a llegar tarde. ¿Por qué nunca estás lista? Hola, hola. ¿Estás ahí? Flor, te va a llevar por lo menos
1 hora, ¿entendés? ¿Cómo hiciste?
Isu Express, nueva tintura en shampoo. Cobertura total de canas en 5 minutos.
Ayo cepetan. Warnain rambut dulu ya. 5 menit aja kok. Hah? Warnain rambut? 5 menit? Gak mungkin lah. Ada-ada aja sih. Halo? Selalu deh begini. Halo? Kita tinggal ya. Wah, kok bisa?
New Henna Shampoo Color. Rambut beruban tertutup 100% hanya dalam 5 menit. New Henna Shampoo Color.
బ్రో కిందికి రా వెళ్దాం. 5 నిమిషాలు ఆగు, జుట్టుకి కలర్ వేసుకోవాలి. హెయిర్ కలర్ అది 5 నిమిషాలునా? ఏంటి ఎలా అవుతుంది? హలో 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 కట్ అయిందా? మేము వెళ్తున్నాం.
వావ్! గోద్రేజ్ సెల్ఫీ షాంపూ హెయిర్ కలర్ కేవలం 5 నిమిషాల్లో తెల్ల జుట్టు మాయం. గోద్రేజ్ సెల్ఫీ.
So you can see one idea shot across 3 countries, giving a great example also, by the way, of simplification and cost reduction. Rather than everyone inventing stuff, you do it from here and shoot it together and do it. That's really three good examples of category development and how we're kind of focusing it, our 4-fold model. Our 4-fold model for simplification is keep reducing the SKUs, fewer people per 1,000 crores of turnover, fewer physical operations, and simpler processes. This is what our model for simplification is. So I think a good example is really in Africa, the simplification that Asif and team have really driven for us over the last 1.5 years. We've reduced our SKUs by 20%, significantly number of fewer people. We've delayered it, got a lot of our resources here. We've now set up our own in-house shared services up in the 7th floor, which is running a lot of operations for Africa, which gives better control and lower costs. We've exited loss-making operations. Kenya, we exited our hair extensions, or we got into a joint venture there. It's actually doing well, and our FMCG business in Kenya is doing well. And we've also exited loss-making parts of our business in other parts of Africa. Simpler processes, I told you already, a shared service center. And EBITDA margins in Africa have now gone to, in GAUM, have gone to 15%, which is a very, very respectable EBITDA margin for those. I think we can still inch it up. I don't think it will come to India, Indonesia levels, but it will still inch up. But from 9, which is what we've generally been a 10% EBITDA business, we've gone to 15. Again, like HI, I want to say with all humility that it's still early days. We need to prove, and some of these things go up and suddenly come down. But at least we're going in the right direction in terms of Africa profitability, which a lot of investors had a lot of concerns about when I came on this job 3 years ago. So that was really about kind of the best example that I have of simplification, which is Africa. A little bit about our operating philosophy. This is how we are training our teams to make decisions, which is when faced with a decision, ask the question, any of these, is it consumer first, business second? Is it tomorrow before today? Are we putting people alongside and profit alongside planet? So these are the 5 philosophies. And less is more is actually the most important one. Take an example of less is more. I think inventory, big driver of cash flow for us, from 42 days of inventory has now come down to 29 days. Consumer first, business second, a really great example actually, and we'll talk about it in deodorants, which is a missed opportunity for last year. But air spray was a category where the MRP of air spray was 169 and the price to trade was 80. So there are some categories like deodorants. Most categories we give retailers 10% margin, maybe 15 sometimes. But there are some categories which are heavily wholesale driven where you give 50% margin. So we said, why should consumers get it 169 and why should trade get it 80 when everywhere else trade is making 10 to 15%? So we took a bold call, first in West Bengal, then in Tamil Nadu, and then nationally, of just reducing the MRP to 99 but keeping the trade price the same. So no drop in price to us, but a massive drop in price to consumers. And this has given us phenomenal results in air. A category, air was growing for us, but air sprays was not growing. So one of the problems we said is, globally sprays is such a big category, why is it not growing in India? When we said, why is it not growing in India? We said the price is too high in India. Most other countries are modern trade countries, where they all price it at roughly 100 rupees a can. And we were pricing it in GT environment, 169 rupees. This is an example of a bold move. We'll talk about deodorants and how we want to reshape that category, because we think that's one of the problems in deodorants is MRP is too high. But it's paid off. Think local, act global. We've had 3 blockbuster products. I think Nisa spoke about it. Shampoo hair color, air pocket, and liquid vaporizer. We have said these are the core of our core. Not brands, but products. We'll try and make it available everywhere. Pradeep is here. We've set up a Godrej International Operations, which now operates in how many countries, Pradeep? 80 countries we've got distributors. And we're now trying to, and we're setting up a YouTube desk, which Harsh will talk about when he speaks to you, where we're advertising in, I don't know how, 15 countries? So of these 80 countries, 15 countries we're running advertising campaigns. With Google, we've set up a center here and we're running it on digital from here. So take 3 products, distribute in 80 countries, advertise in 15 next year. This year we'll advertise in more countries. And this has been a great example of local innovations, but now becoming globalized. And genuinely high margin products giving us genuine cash flows from global operations.
वाह अरे कैसा वाव आज क्यों स्प्रे कर रहे हैं ना गेस्ट आ रहे हैं ना कोई स्पेशल ओकेजन पैसे पेड़ पे उगते हैं क्या
शांत पिगी शांत क्योंकि गोदरेज एयर अब सिर्फ 99 रुपए में क्योंकि सेविंग्स पैसे की होनी चाहिए खुशबू की नहीं इसीलिए गोदरेज एयर अब सिर्फ 99 रुपए में
Tomorrow before today, I think an investment that again cost us almost 100 bips of EBITDA margins in India in FY25. And frankly, we had done this before we knew these costs were coming. Again, there was temptation to remove this in the second half, but we said no, let's not confuse short-term issues with long-term issues. We have gone from 35,000 villages to 80,000 villages and gone from 350,000 villages to 620,000 villages. This is a very expensive operation. It's a physical van operation. But our margin portfolio, it needs 3-4 years. It loses money in year 1, probably will break even this year, and will start making money next year. So it's an investment. But this is the kind of investments required in rural reach. Because once you start physically reaching through an expensive van operation and demand builds up, then there'll be cheaper ways to reach that outlet. So high cost way. But a big investment, we spent almost 100 crores on the van operation in FY25, and a small video on the van operation, which has been another driver of, in a time in which volumes have been hard to come, this has been another driver of volume growth.
कांधे पे सूरज टिका के चला तू, हाथों में भर के चला बिजलियां, जैसे उड़े आंधियां।
ਜਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਨਾ ਵਿਸਤਾਰ ਵੈਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਆਉਣ ਲੱਗਿਆ, ਗੋਦਰੇਜ ਕੰਪਨੀ ਵਾਲੇ, ਸਾਰਾ ਸਮਾਨ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੇ ਮਿਲਣ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ। ਅੱਗੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ।
ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਗਲੀਆਂ ਨਾਲੀਆਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੱਛਰ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਦਿੱਕਤ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨੀ ਵਗੈਰਾ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੁਕਾਨ ਤੇ ਲੋਕਲ ਅਗਰਬੱਤੀ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਵੇਚੀ ਦੀ ਸੀ ਜੀ ਮੱਛਰ ਭਜਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ। ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੁੱਡ ਨਾਈਟ ਅਗਰਬੱਤੀ ਆਈ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਰਿਸਪੌਂਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ।
ਅਸੀਂ ਰਾਤ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਸਾਡੇ ਮੱਛਰ ਭੱਜ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ।
ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਲ ਡਾਈ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਾਲ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਗੋਦਰੇਜ ਦੀ ਕਰੀਮ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੰਡ ਅਵੇਲੇਬਲ ਹੋਈ ਆ।
ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਈਡ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੰਮੀ ਦੇਰ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਚੱਲਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਹਦੀ।
ਕਸਟਮਰ ਵੀ ਖੁਸ਼, ਹਮ ਵੀ ਖੁਸ਼। ਮੇਰੀ ਸੇਲ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਮੁਨਾਫਾ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਮੈਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਵਿਸਤਾਰ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਗੋਦਰੇਜ ਕੰਪਨੀ।
पहले दूर दराज की दुकानों तक सामान पहुंचाना मुश्किल था, लेकिन विस्तार के बाद अब हर दुकान तक आसानी से सामान पहुंचा पा रहा हूँ। मेरा नेटवर्क बढ़ गया है और ऑर्डर भी ज़्यादा मिल रहे हैं और कमाई भी बढ़ गई है।
देश के कोने कोने में दौड़ती विस्तार वैन बदलाव की नई लहर बना रही है।
So that was Vistar. I think the final kind of operating philosophy is people and planet. Nisa already spoke. It's a damn hard thing to crack, which is the Wall Street Journal Dow Jones Sustainability Index is the premier sustainability index in the world. We're ranked number 2 in the world in FMCG companies after Shiseido in Japan, and the only company in India. So while we do all this, despite whatever may be happening in the world, we are committed to having a more fair, inclusive, and responsible company. Ultimately, this is not what matters. What matters is what we do, but these recognitions tell us that we're on the right path. So that was really kind of our operating philosophy and sort of give you some kind of feel of, basically I'm trying to give you a feel of what's our strategy and are we being true to strategy. And every year I'll kind of show you the same chart. I think our measures were industry beating UVG. Despite a poor quarter on UVG, both in India and Indonesia, I think we've beaten UVG as far as industry, and despite kind of industry slowdowns in UVG. All our cells have had market share gains. I met Manoj that day and he said all companies show this chart, so I'm not going to show this chart for too long because this seems to be a chart, but fair enough. I told you the one that I'm not happy with still is HI overall shares. Segment shares are important because that's what matters. But consistently improving metrics that matter, 200 bips of A&P, 150 bips down of supply chain costs, and 5 days of inventory reduction in 2 years. So these are the metrics that matter for us. More diversity and inclusion. We've moved to from 44% in FY24 to 47% of women. So it's almost a gender balanced organization, 50% in the board. 2/3 of leadership hires in FY25 were women. So actually, in some sense, the gender job is done. We're now moving towards PWD and LGBTQ. We've committed 5% in both our factories. We have brand managers. We have employees in the company who are from either the LGBTQ community or PWD, and they're visible in the organization. It's also symbolic. It makes us as a place a more inclusive and fairer place. So I think a report card of our strategy over the last few years. I think what went well, I think we've made a lot of progress on category development. Structural profitability has improved. A lot of investments have gone into A&P, but gross margins, costs, there's been a structural improvement of, I would say, 12% CAGR over the last 3 years has been the structural profitability improvement. Cash flow is actually magnified because on top of this 12%, we've got leverage in other parts of the portfolio, and sustainability and diversity. Volume growth could definitely be better. The drivers of volume growth, we'll talk about this in detail. I would say HI India is the most important thing for the company. I think the company will be a different company if HI grows at close to double digits or even high single digits from low single digits, which has been growing consistently. I think we've got a beachhead here. And deodorants is a category We are convinced that this is a great category we acquired, but it's a category where the structure of the category in India is not great. We knew it when we got in, and we've got to reshape this category. So kind of that was just the global picture. I was wearing my hat as the global CEO of GCPL. I'm now going to kind of change hats, and because I also run and double hat as the India CEO, I'm going to talk a little bit about India, and which is the most largest and most important part of our business, and how do we build a growth engine in India. So I think the first thing to sort of say is, sometimes I meet people who are not in FMCG. You guys are all in FMCG. They say, hey, you know, is India come to a stage where people are moving money away from FMCG into other categories, right? That's a question a lot of people ask me. Then I have to show them this chart saying there's no question of it. This is where HPC per capita versus GDP per capita is. Till about $10,000, FMCG, at least in theory, is meant to grow faster than GDP. It's not in India, is a different point, but that's what it's meant to be. So our job is to find out why it's not and make it grow. But these kind of numbers can't lie. These are all global numbers. They are what they are, and it has happened in the past in India. It's not like it's not happened. FMCGs, something has not been right for the last 5-7 years. We've got to solve it, but we should never forget this curve, that till India becomes $10,000, this, which is some time away, FMCG and HPC within it should outgrow GDP. That's how the category should operate at. And when I say outgrow, I mean in volume terms, not value. I think GCPL's path to tap into the HPC growth opportunity is threefold. In soaps is to profitably grow shares. So to kind of inch up shares, but to kind of, which was a slightly different strategy from the past, which is to kind of make money in soaps. Household insecticide, roughly our business is a third, maybe a little bit more in soaps and a little bit less in categories of the future, is to turn around volumes. I personally feel that there will come a time in which household insecticide will grow 15 to 20% for a decade. That will happen when incense sticks plateaus and premiumization starts on incense sticks. Incense sticks is not yet plateaued in India. And I've seen this in other categories where sometimes mass grows so fast that you think premium never will. I've seen it in laundry, for example, where it used to be a premium category. Then there were a lot of mass players that came in the late 80s and 90s. There was an explosion in mass, and everybody felt that the market is going to be mass. And lo and behold, towards the 2010, the market rapidly started premiumizing again. So in the long run, there will be a decade of 15 to 20% growth. But in the short run, can we get this while incense sticks is growing fast to at least high single-digit volume growth is our challenge. And then we must rapidly expand categories because we know what categories are going to expand in the future and get into newer categories. So this is the path to growth for GCPL. Let me kind of speak a little bit in detail about the most important category, which is household insecticide. What's the issue? What's the solution? What we think is the solution? What is the progress path to it? So I think the first thing is, over the last decade, or this is 7 years, but over the last decade, one question that often comes to me, just as it comes, is that FMCG, is it a yesterday's sector, which I have to show them that chart. The question that comes to me is, has Swachh Bharat and things like that, has it plateaued out on HI? So we have a measure called nights, because most people use HI products while they use it in the afternoon, evening spray, but the majority of HI usage is night protection. You put it on in the night and sleep without mosquitoes in your bedroom. So we have a way of calculating nights. And over the last 7 years, the total HI nights has grown by 4%. It beats population. So leave alone the fact that it's declining, it's actually growing at mid-single digit volumes. The unfortunate part, or unfortunate for us, not unfortunate for the incense stick manufacturers, but unfortunately for us, all these nights growth and more has been captured by the incense stick market. And the rest of the market has basically remained flat. Coils has declined, and the premium parts of the portfolio have grown a little bit. But this is the story of the market. It is not a story of no growth in the category. It is merely a story of downgradation to incense sticks at the expense of other formats. This is first and foremost the most important thing to remember in the household insecticide category. Today, incense stick salience is 25. When will incense stick salience peak out? I don't know. I suspect it will peak out at, well, it's anybody's guess. It could peak out at 25, it could peak out at 30, it could peak out at 35. I don't think it will cross 35, 40. It's not typically, it doesn't happen. So we may have a few more years of rapid incense stick growth, after which it will revert to a premiumization market. So we are in the middle of a downgradation market for the last decade. That's fact number one. This has resulted in a lower UVG for our household insecticide portfolio. So our household insecticide portfolio, which should have grown UVG at 10 to 15%. Because if nights grow at 5%, and like most markets, it has to premiumize, you have to get a premium over the physical volume. So the physical volumes is 4 to 5. You have to get 8 to 9 UVG and 11 to 12 USG. That's the structure of a market. Unfortunately, that's not happened. And all of our businesses, depending on a good year or a bad year, have been typically 2 to 3 volume growth, somewhere between 0 and 5. Now, what was the diagnosis of the issue? The diagnosis of the issue that we had in incense sticks was, why was incense sticks doing so well, is that it was using cheaper, more efficacious illegal Chinese molecule. In particular, it has now moved towards a molecule called mepafluthrin, MPF, which was twice as effective as the molecule that industry was using, which was transfluthrin. So the diagnosis of the issue, which frankly we came to a little later, was it's not the format, but the molecule that the format was using. So we quickly got the molecule, I presented this last time, renofluthrin. We got exclusivity for the medium term. We launched it first actually a little bit in coils, in agarbatti, and in electrics. All these three now, for the last 6-8 months, have renofluthrin. It's a made in India molecule. Now, the first serious play we did was on agarbatti. Agarbatti has now become a 100 crore plus business for us. We have a number one player in the market with 8 share of the market. So from 0 to 8 we have gone in 1 year. And in the shops that we sell, we have 50% share of handlers. So if we are distributed, and we are not widely distributed because there is still wholesale resistance to us because we don't give the kind of trade margins locals do. But if we get registered, if we get distributed, we have 50% share of handlers. I think one of the things that we've got to do in agarbatti is, if we grow agarbatti too fast, we run the risk of accelerating the growth of incense sticks. If we grow it too slowly, we will not gain share fast enough. So the Goldilocks position for us is to be able to gain share without growing the market too fast. One of the problems that we had in Q3, which we didn't mention at that time, was perhaps we went too fast on agarbatti. Then in Q4, we've withdrawn our investment. So we're also trying to get this balance right between how do we see sequential share gains in agarbatti without growing the agarbatti market, because eventually we will win agarbatti for certain. At the same time, how do we take up profitability of agarbatti? So we've already taken up prices, which we launched at 10. In South India, we've now moved to 15 rupees. In North India, we're at 10. We'll gradually inch up prices, either through pricing or through sticks, so that we can make at least a respectable margin in agarbatti, because if there is downgradation continues for the next 3 years, because we don't know, 25, 30, 35, 40. If this market becomes 40, we cannot be saddled with a very low margin business. So these are the various kind of things we're playing with. It's a dynamic situation, but we at least know what the variables are to play with in agarbatti. Goodnight Electrics, as I showed you, is showing excellent progress from kind of historically being at 0 to 2 volume for a long time, since 17 at least. Q4 was double digit. In fact, the value growth was in the high teens. Some of it is, as I said, seasonality, which was good in Q4, and Q1 may not be as good a season as Q4 was. But we think we are spreading the season by 8 to 10 percentage points. So if a season is 103, 104, our volume is 112. Therefore, if a season is 96 index, we should at least be 105, 106. And seasons don't vary more than 95 to 105 is where seasonality in HI operates at. That's the band at which it operates. Our question is, can we spread the season? This is the delta market share. It's been a flattish market share through the year. Suddenly, we saw in Q4, 200 bips, we've hit our record high share in the electrics market. So both these tell us that we're probably on the right path. And also what we've seen in Indonesia, what we saw in Bangladesh, what you guys saw last year in terms of the molecule yourself, it had to work. And certainly we see the signs are good. 1 or 2 more quarters and then we can probably say, yes, it's working, but I would still wait for 1 or 2 more quarters before calling this a comprehensive win. Across segments, we now started winning shares. As we started putting now, even HIT has gone in with a better molecule, not RNF, but another molecule, but also a superior molecule. So all our segments, what we've noticed is, when we put the better molecule, 4-5 months later, we start gaining share, at least within the segment, right? And we're also innovating. So while we are kind of fighting this battle against agarbatti, we're also trying to premiumize, because there is this top 20% of Indians who are willing to pay a premium. So last year we launched this HIT Matic, this HIT ARG, we launched a 99 rupee SKU, which did really well. So we're trying to super premiumize the market, or premiumize the market into more premium formats than even electrics, so that we can gain what we're losing in terms of agarbatti downgradation. And these are some of the ads.
पुराने हिट से मच्छर मारने के लिए बहुत बार स्प्रे करना पड़ता, लेकिन अब नहीं, क्योंकि आ गया है नया हिट। इसकी थंडरबोल्ट टेक्नोलॉजी से सिर्फ एक Z और मच्छर डेड। नया हिट, असर ज्यादा, दाम कम, अब 180 रुपए में। 9:30 बजे, 2:15 बजे, 10:30 बजे,
ऐसे मच्छर मारने की जरूरत नहीं। अब आ गया है नया ऑटोमेटिक हिटमैटिक,
एक ऐसी मशीन जो हर 2 घंटे में अपने आप स्प्रे करे। सिंपली स्विच ऑन और 24 घंटे मच्छर गॉन। क्या पूरी रात खड़े रहोगे बाकियों के इंतजार में?
हिट एंटी रोच जेल, जो कॉकरोच को बाहर खींचे, वो आएगा, खाएगा और मर जाएगा, साथ ही बाकी कॉकरोचों को भी मार देगा।
सुबह तक सब मर जाएंगे। हिट एंटी रोच जेल अब 99 रुपए के पैक में भी।
So that's really about household insecticide. To summarize household insecticide, question number 1, is this a growth category? The answer is it is growing. There will come a time in which this category will explode once the incense stick market stabilizes. 2 is the molecule working? Signs, not just early signs, because incense sticks and all, we've been around for a year. Signs are clearly, and we also know clearly that better molecule is working. I think these are the 2 big messages from household insecticide. What is the composite of this growth depends a lot on how much the agarbatti market grows and for how long it grows. That's the basic unknown vector for us in this category. Now, the next question is really, and I'm not talking so much about soaps in this because I think soaps is reasonably clear and simple. Let me talk about GCPL's ability, because while we've got HI, this HI waiting game of when it will re-premiumize, while that happens, we've got to have HPC products that give us a lot of growth in the interim. So these are the categories of the future that we are playing with. Each of these are under-penetrated categories in India: air fresheners, liquid detergents, hair colors, body wash, deos and perfumes, and sexual wellness. All of them have large TAMs, large under-penetrated, varying degrees of success, as I will show you. But at least we know that these are all categories which are growing and will grow fast in the future. I think the simplest and cleanest of this is actually air fresheners. Air freshener, if I'm not mistaken, in India has like some 10 cents per capita consumption. I think in Indonesia, which is twice the GDP, has 50 cents. And it is an exponential growth with GDP. That's because people, it's not just a penetration vector, but people also use more and more rooms in air fresheners. You will see yourselves, many of you in the room would have started using things in the living room, things in the car, things in your bedroom while you sleep, etc. So you have 2 vectors of growth, and this has been broadly media driven. A lot of this increase in media that you have seen has largely come on air care. It's very, very high margin, 1,000 bips of market share, repeatable model. The repeatable model is put a lot of money on it. Every year or every 2 years, come with a blockbuster innovation that captures another space, take that up and get a repeatable model of roughly 20% growth is the kind of model that we should get on this business. These are 2 formats. Air plug, which we're launching as we speak in South India and modern trade and e-commerce. I'll just show you the advertisement. It's what we did in Indonesia as well. And another experiment in Andhra that we're running, which is a democratization of our SKU pocket. And we're seeing whether that drives penetration or not. So on both ends of the spectrum, premiumization and democratization, we have moves. This is Air Mini, which is a pilot as we speak in 1 state.
मुझे फ्रेश हवा चाहिए, मेरी बारी है।
Excuse me,
मेरी बारी है।
ओए, फ्रेश हवा के लिए मैं ही ऊपर जाऊंगा। चुप।
फ्रेश हवा के लिए मैं सुबह से लाइन में लगा हूं।
फ्रेश हवा।
छोटे बाथरूम की बदबू से मत भागो, फ्रेशनेस के लिए ले आओ गोदरेज एयर मिनी पॉकेट।
वाओ, गोदरेज एयर मिनी पॉकेट
अब सिर्फ 30 रुपए में।
पूरे दिन से खुशबू, आखिर ये खुशबू आ कहां से रही है? देखूं तो दूरबीन से भी कुछ नहीं दिख रहा। फूल, ये तो सुबह ही सूख के काटा हो गया। एग्जॉस्ट, ये तो दोपहर को ही एग्जॉस्ट हो गया। मोमबत्ती, इसकी तो खुद की बुझ गई है बत्ती।
ओए जग्गा जासूस, दूरबीन छोड़ पास में देख।
वाओ, गोदरेज एयर प्लग।
गोदरेज एयर प्लग, ये लगातार खुशबू फैलाए। जब ये होगा स्विच ऑन, खुशबू रहेगी ऑलवेज ऑन। गोदरेज एयर प्लग।
This is air plug which we're launching as we speak. So then liquid detergents has been an explosive growth for us. We're really proud of Fab. We're running an average ARR that was in March. Actually, the April ARR is higher. The ARR is going up every month. It's like one of these startup brands. I don't think too many brands have achieved an ARR of 250 crores in the first year. We did 150 crores in the full year. And we're really proud because it's not just a cheap product, because actually our RPIs in Fab have been increasing with every quarter, partly because we've taken up prices, partly because market is responding. So this is again a blockbuster. Still some way to go on this one in terms of margins, but this is going to be a huge category of the future. We already had Easy, but we now seem to have a right to win overall in this market, and this is going to be a massive vector of growth for us. As it becomes bigger, the impact on the business will become bigger and bigger, because I anticipate this business to double every year for the next few years. So that's the kind of deltas that we should be getting on this kind of business, because the measure for success, which KK, who's in sales here, is every month has to be bigger than the previous month by 10%. That's the measure of success here, not growth versus the previous year. And this is, I think on hair colors, again, some really good stuff, which is the penetration of this category kind of over the last 7 years had gone up by 3x, which is creme. And the source of growth here is powders have to upgrade to creme. Creme penetration is about 30%. We are at about 20. The market is, so there's a long way to go for the penetration of creme. And since we launched the 15 rupee SKU, this penetration has gone from about 10% of our penetration to 20%. So it has doubled in the last 2 years, in just so 5. So after basically gaining, let's say, 50 to 100 bips of penetration a year, this has taken up penetration by 500 bips. It reflects a little less in value because this comes at a lower value, but the game here is to sweep out powders into creme, then we'll figure out a way of creating value here. So again, this has been a big driver of volume growths for us, less in terms of value growths. This is the new advertisement that we're running on creme. One of the things we didn't do right last year was, I was not happy with the quality of advertising on creme, but this is something that has tested really well for us, and we've just gone in with this.
हाँ, मिसेस मिश्रा क्या देख रही हैं? ओह गॉड, मेरे सफेद बालों को घूर रही हैं। गिन रही है क्या? पक्का गिन लिए।
24?
24 सफेद बाल।
24th floor?
प्रीति जी, सफेद बालों की फिक्र छोड़िए, बेफिक्र होकर गोदरेज एक्सपर्ट रिच क्रीम से कलर कीजिए। इसमें है 10 गुना ज्यादा एलोवेरा। अब कलर्ड बाल दिखेंगे सॉफ्ट और शाइनी।
अब जितना चाहे देख लो मिसेस मिश्रा।
गोदरेज एक्सपर्ट रिच क्रीम।
Then something that we frankly have missed the bus on a little bit, which is the upgradation of soaps to body wash, but we're determined to make amends here. And this was Synthol body wash that we launched. It's again a very differentiated product. If you guys haven't used it, we think it has a formula that will succeed. And again, largely in e-commerce, we did 2 experiments. One is we did an experiment in quick commerce, and 2 in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu, we didn't have great success, but in quick commerce, we're having great success. So repeat rates are really good. And I think many of these products, there is now a repeatable model of get it onto quick commerce, advertise on connected TV and social, move it to modern trade, move it to general trade, move it to rural. So this mix we're confident of, but probably not enough for us. And we need to watch this space because we have to ride this upgradation of soaps to body wash, and we are behind on this curve. This is the Synthol ad.
Synthol Instant Foam Body Wash.
Then let me come to Park Avenue and Kama Sutra and spend a little bit of time on this because I think a lot of you will be keen and interested to hear how has this acquisition gone. It's been a mixed story, but let me kind of tell you where we are and what we want to do this year on Park Avenue and Kama Sutra. I think the first thing to understand is that deodorants, perfumes, and sexual wellness have very, very long runways of growth. This is spend per capita of deodorants. Perfumes is actually, as you guys know, exploding, and actually one of the things we're happy that we acquired it is we got a beachhead into perfumes, which is doing extremely well even for us, though it's small, and condoms. So this is the multi-decade growth, unlike of soaps, of these three categories. Now, the report card of our business is a mixed report card. We acquired 622 crores of this business, 40 to 50 crores we were sure we had to delist because a lot of it was bulk businesses. But then when we bought the business, we realized that like in Africa, there were many other parts of the business which were making no money. So we then had to delist it and bring it down to roughly 500 crores. On that 500 crores, I thought we'd grow this year by 20-25%. We haven't, we've grown only 10%. We have increased our ATL from 35 crores, which is what we acquired it at, to 100 crores. So we have put 65 crores more in advertising, I would say, with mixed results. It's not like air. When the mix is absolutely right, you get a massive uplift of advertising. If the mix is not right, you don't. Here, I would say on faith, we put 3 times the money. We've not, 10% growth is not what 3 times the money should get. But despite that, the EBITDA has gone from 50 to 100 crores. So if you again take the EBITDA plus working media, and this has largely come on account of both gross margins and overheads. So I would say that 100 crores, despite 65 crores of media investments, is not exceptional, but it's not terrible either. So I would say it's been a mixed bag in terms of what we, certainly less than what we set out to achieve and what I thought I told you guys, because I told you guys that by now we should try and be EPS accretive on that. For that, this needed to be 140 crores of EBITDA. It's not 140 crores of EBITDA, it's 100 crores of EBITDA. So 40 crores behind what I wanted to do in terms, at 140 crores EBITDA, we would have said, okay, whatever the interest cost or cost of capital of the acquisition is being paid off. That's not happened, but it's down by about 40 crores. What has worked and what has not worked? Sexual wellness has worked, largely driven by distribution, market share gains. Fine fragrances, we didn't buy this business for fine fragrances, but it's become 3x and it is really growing. You guys will see the products. We've done a lot of work on fine fragrances. This is going to explode. We think of the deo players, we're probably the right. I think there is one competitor who has really driven this market. You guys know which one. But we think we can be a fair fight there. What's not worked for us has been deodorants. There are 2 things that have not worked for us. One is, which we didn't, the product itself, when we acquired it, we realized when we did our blind product test was inferior to competition. And there were product, 4-5 years ago, reductions in dosages of fragrances on some of these products. So the products were not as efficacious as they were 4-5 years ago. And the GTM, I think we made a couple of mistakes on go-to-market. When we merged it with GCPL, we lost distribution in cosmetics, which was a pretty big loss of distribution. These were the 2 mistakes that we made. I think going forward, what we're doing is we've now created a dedicated team, a dedicated CEO to run this business. Pradeep will run this business for us and focus on chemist and cosmetics. First do it for PAKS, but a chemist and cosmetics distribution channel can be useful for us in a lot of other businesses as well. Chemist is definitely paid off. Cosmetics has been poor, but I think it's worth getting a cosmetics channel in place. Even though today the only real product we have apart from fragrances and deos is hair color, but still I think it's an investment in the future. Second thing that we're doing is same thing, creating access. It's an experiment we're running in Tamil Nadu. It's a pretty bold thing on the success of air fresheners. MRP of this category is 230. If you go of KS Spark, if you go to the market, the trade rate is 90 to 95. That's the kind of difference in trade rate and MRP. So what we've done in Tamil Nadu is brought down the MRP to 99, brought down the trade rate a little bit, actually gone from 150 ml to 120 ml because we said let's keep the magic price point of 99, brought down the trade rate to 85. So same thing, first 3-4 months, a lot of resistance, a lot of advertising, and then it starts to pay off. So I hope if it works, we kind of move it to the rest of the country because I think this is a game-changing move in the deodorants category to get growth back into this category. Then we also need to build relevance. So one of the things we've done, again, just launched as we speak, you guys will see it. There is a product called Amazon Woods, which comes in a bottle and sells at an MRP of $330 and a trade price of $230. We have taken the bottle, brought it into a can, and marketing it as 4X. So this category got disrupted when aerosols went from X to 2X with no gas and so on and so forth, so doubling the amount of perfume with keeping the price the same. So typically aerosols have 3 to 4% fragrance. The disruption happened when the current market leader came in with 7% fragrance. Amazon Woods has 12% fragrance, so it's somewhere in between an EDP and a deodorant at the same price as the market leader. So this is disruption number 2. This is a pan-national launch. There's no risk in this. The first one has risks associated, which we're doing. The third thing we are doing, which you'll again see now, is one of the reasons we bought this category was to get into antiperspirants. Globally, the deodorant category is 2/3 antiperspirant, 1/3 aerosol. India, there is no antiperspirant, little bit of spurts of market development, but nobody has focused on it. A long, hard battle, but we will fight this battle. We've got a brand called Block. It brings down the price of 99. Again, market leader in this, MRP 220, often you'll see it selling at 130, 140. We will bring the price to 99. We're launching it in Tamil Nadu again as we speak. And the third salvo. The fourth salvo is a complete rebranding and repositioning, and Darshan here from our design team has done this, on EDPs. So we feel we can bring in perfumes, good design, good advertising, good aesthetics, cosmetics channel, beauty channel, and we can fight the mass fragrance battle in India at 300 rupees a bottle is going to explode. And this is a battle that we would like to fight against. So these are 4 big moves that we'll make in deodorants. Not all of them will work, but even if 1 or 2 of them work, we will have a disproportionate game, but we'll have to be patient here. It may not work this year, it may work next year or the year after, but I'm sure if 1 or 2 of these work, we will, and we're committed to this category. So this is the advertisements that we are running. In fact, in May 1st is what we started many of these.
बॉस? बॉस का बॉस? उसका भी बॉस? So sorry, कल तुझे बताना भूल गया. 4 गुना लो आ गए ना?
पार्क एवेन्यू Amazon Woods. लोग 4 गुना है ना, तालियां भी तो 4 गुना बजेंगी.
हर स्प्रे में 4 गुना परफ्यूम. पार्क एवेन्यू Amazon Woods.
And this is Block, where I'm personally passionate and excited about. One of my personal things is to build antiperspirants in India.
चोर भाग गया, पकड़ो!
मैडम को पसीना आ गया. फिर से पसीना? क्या मैडम, बार बार टैल्कम पाउडर क्यों? एक बार गोदरेज ब्लॉक लगाओ. नया गोदरेज ब्लॉक, ये दे ऑर्डिनरी पाउडर के मुकाबले 48 आवर्स तक स्वेट कंट्रोल. गोदरेज ब्लॉक स्वेट ऑल डे.
So kind of taking the fight to powders, solid market development, and get these powders out, and fight powders directly. And I'm glad I can see a lot of smiles and titters in the room, which, by the way, in analyst meetings, when you show advertising, it's usually quite blank. So I'm quite happy that I'm seeing some smiles here. So I think our aspiration remains strong for Park Avenue and Kama Sutra. I'm absolutely sure that A, it was the right acquisition, and B, we will win, and C, it's an outsized prize waiting for it to happen. It's just a question of, luckily for us, it's not a game-changing move. It's still a relatively small category, so we can take risks on this category, but we're determined to win here. I think cost efficiency, I think one of the things Harsh will talk about is, you guys have seen significant increases in ATL over the last 3 years. We have now become one of the largest spenders of ATL, and we have changed our agency as we speak. And we hope to get 100 to 150 bips of savings in rates as a consequence of that. So we are baking in a good savings on media without cutting GRPs. So we are going to keep the same GRPs, but a combination of planning efficiency, which Harsh will talk about, but more importantly, a new agency which has a mandate to deliver significant cost, because we've gone from a company that's spending 300 crores on media to spending 1,000 crores of media. So we certainly deserve better rates. And we think, so you may see optically lower ATL spends by 100 to 150 bips, but it is all due to lower cost per reach point and not due to lower GRPs that we are spending on air. So this is a big project for FY26 and a big savings that will come because of the basically change to Group M from Madison. And Group M, as you know, is the largest media house in the country. I think some pretty significant savings will come from supply chains this year. Some of it from the new factories, a lot of it automation, logistics, but also efficiencies in sourcing using technology. We've got Nishit, who's joined us from Levers and then McKinsey to run buying for us, because we spent 3,500-4,000 crores in buying, and I felt using technology, we can squeeze out 1 or 2% of buying savings. We've got a lot of supply chain savings, but not enough of buying. And I'm expecting a pretty good cost saving year this year, because the first 6 months of this year will be tough in terms of margin. If the palm oil prices remain what they are, we'll have a good second half. But it'll take 3-4 months for that to kind of come into the P&L. So it's super crucial for us to get these savings in so we can get the EBITDA back to the normative and invest in all the new stuff that we're doing. Finally, I think before this session ends, a few charts on pet care. I told you why we got into pet care. But 9% of Indian households own pets. Brazil is 52%. There's something called calorie conversion, which is of the total calories that pets consume, how much is consumed by packaged foods. It's a function of packaged food penetration and occasions in which packaged foods are used. So packaged food penetration in India is 10, occasions of use is 40%. So 4% calorie conversion on 9% pet ownership. Both these will have to go up. It's a two-player market, and I think there's probably space for a third. This is our mix, which is Godrej Ninja. We're positioning it quite sharply on immunity, which is there are two big benefits in this category. Vitality, your dog should be kind of active and energetic and should fall sick less often. We'll do this the marketing way, which is more gut power, less sick days. It's a pilot launched in Tamil Nadu last week. Not much revenues are going to come this year because we're again going to be patient on this. We'll do it properly and then launch it probably nationally next year after we learn our way through on success and failure, because having done some of these before, the odds are you will have 1 or 2 failures before you get success. So that's how we're doing it. This is the advertisement of Godrej Ninja.
Next patient.
ब्रूनो फिर से यहाँ?
डॉक्टर फिर से एनर्जी लो।
ये सब साइंस हो सकते हैं पुअर गट हेल्थ के, इसीलिए गोदरेज निंजा डॉग फूड। इसमें है प्रोबायोटिक्स जो रखे इसके गट को हेल्थी। गोदरेज निंजा, मोर गट पावर, लेस सिक डेज।
I hope you guys had a wonderful experience in the product displays. I hope that you guys got to see and test the products, ask our management team members the tough questions on what the products will do, and hopefully they didn't give you too many numbers. So with that, we'll go on to the next session. Basically, we've heard Sudhir talk about how GCPL has in-housed all the marketing and design capabilities over the last few years. And today, we're kind of doing it a different way. We have with us Dilshad Irani. Dilshad Irani is the editor of Storyboard, Network 18's group flagship platform covering media, advertising, and marketing, and the business of brands. As the founding editor, she transformed CNBC TV 18's long-running show into a cross-platform destination for modern marketeers. She leads editorial strategy, creates marquee IPs and events, and anchors shows like Media Dialogues on CNBC TV 18. So please put your hands together for Dilshad. After Delshad, we want to introduce you to Swati, who leads our creative lab. Unfortunately, Swati is unavailable today due to an injury. And in her place, we will have Shalini from her team. So please put your hands together from Shalini. Next up, we have Darshan Gandhi, who leads our design team and design thinking, or as she likes to call, DISCO. And finally, we have Harsh, the person who's saving us the 150 whips we promised. So without further ado, Delshad, up to you.
Thank you for that introduction, Vishal, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and I know we are a little sort of tight on time, so I want to just get straight into it. We've, of course, in our capacity as chroniclers of the brand space, we've spoken and covered the idea of in-housing for a very long time. And for the past few years, we've seen, of course, globally, a push toward it. And these are large advertisers, marketeers all over the world. And I think GCPL has led the way in India. Truly, in-housing is very different, of course, from just talking about in-housing, which is part in-house, part outsource. This is very different from what I've gathered over the course of my conversations with Sudhir as well. So without any delay, let me get straight into it. And let me start at the very beginning of the process, right, at inception. And I'll come to you, Darshan, first. We, of course, design means a lot of things to a lot of people, but tell me what it means to GCPL, and tell me about the strategic priority that it is. It goes beyond aesthetics. It goes far beyond that. So give us a view on how the company sees the role of design as a strategic imperative over just the, going beyond the aesthetics.
So thank you for that question. Very few people ask that kind of a question because people don't understand design that well, but NISA did back in 2008 very well, so it's a privilege. In 2008, when I came in here to look at what we can do with GCPL from a design lens, I think there were two things inspired me very deeply. One is the legacy of Godrej and what it had to do, and NISA's bold ambition about what can be done with that. I was very inspired by our science and R&D, and I saw that there's immense potential, not within the company, but also at that time a country, because at that time I was young, 27, I had a young family, aspiring middle class, and when I saw this Godrej from within, and when I looked at my life as a consumer, there were very few products that I was using from Godrej's portfolio at that point. So that triggered a lot of visualization, considering the material and the elements and the energy that we had and the expertise that we had. We quickly start to prototype things, and I thought that, and hence design wasn't just about like aesthetic, but kind of redefining and innovating meaning of what can this Godrej mean for tomorrow's India or today's India at that point. And that kind of became my benchmark, and I think by 2012 or 13 we had a solid design process integrated within the business where we could prototype along with cross-functional, and we borrow a lot of cross-functional intelligence from within the company to architect some of these possibilities, and that's how we started to create. So everything that you saw just outside is completely in-house design, both in terms of product design, portfolio architecture, branding, identifying, and it took us some time, and I think we are getting better with that. So that's the role that we play here, deeply integrated into businesses and influencing consumers and keep feeding into the aspirations of consumers across emerging markets. And now we've expanded beyond India. and we continue to do so.
And I love what we were talking about earlier, finding that extraordinary in the ordinary, right, in our homes. But let's talk a little bit about disco quickly, and let's also talk about the influence, therefore, in global markets. Tell us a little bit about what disco is doing and how all of these, the intelligence that you're gathering, the inputs that you're getting from consumers, from, within functions, within the company, how is all that informing disco's, what comes out of disco?
Yeah, so I wanted to show you like a quick video of disco and how it works, and I think it's kind of self-explanatory in terms of where all it travels. So can you please have the video?
We are Disco, the floor for design, innovation, strategy, and creative collaboration at Godrej. Born in India, built for the world. We move consumer mindsets and push leadership forward. We don't just design, we transform. We build brands with purpose and perspective. We shape meaning. We prototype devices that feel safe, work beautifully, and look even better. We're all about delight by design. We rebel when it matters and dive deep while designing ecosystems. We lead with empathy for people and planet. A community of designers, innovators, visualizers, strategists, and creatives, here to move hearts, minds, and the future.
So as you can see what it looks like when it's in working, when we are working together as young designers across India, Indonesia, Africa. There are 4 things that are very important to us as part of design strategy. One is meaningfulness, as I spoke about, and meaningfulness both for the consumer and also what it means for Godrej and what is the Godrej way of serving that to consumer that pushes the consumer to the next level.
And it's more intuitive.
And more intuitive. And there's nothing that you can find in the meaning that, oh, this is existing because of their thought. It's not rational, it's very intuitive and co-created, kind of feeling that sensibility of consumers. But instinctively when they'll see something, it's been designed and coded in every aspect at every level of whether it's tone of voice, color palette, the shape, ergonomics, to functionality, to emotion, to the language that we use is thoughtfully integrated into that meaning so that it becomes as inclusive as possible. We don't use fancy word for a reason. We keep the packaging minimal for a reason so that people understand how to use. And because we do design a lot of innovative products and it requires some sort of education, we use packaging and architecture and brand and nomenclature in a way that it's very easy to understand across India. It's not only for elite, but also for rural people who doesn't know English, can just see it and understand what happens. And the second other 3 factors that are important is distinctiveness. Distinctiveness from the competition, distinctiveness within the house, how beautifully it's kind of standing out. And relevance, making sure that the portfolio choices we help and push businesses, we have enough meetings when we get to see the work R&D puts out, and then we are able to convert that into more consumable and more easy and more palatable formats in a way that it becomes more relevant so that people use it more often. And the 4th most aspect is credibility, to making sure that there's enough credibility and truth and honesty into that. That's very key to Godrej into each of these. So principally, what you see outside is just the aesthetic representation of a lot of these deep-coded values. But we see that in whatever we have done, we have been very successful in the way people have perceived us, the way we wanted them to perceive.
Absolutely, and I think keeping the crux of it is keeping the consumer at the core of that design thinking, which makes it intuitive, right? And that sort of, it sparks that emotion as well, because design is something you also feel. It's not just about the touch or the other sense, but it's something that you feel. Final question for our segment on design-led thinking before we go. And while you spoke about the pillars, let's also talk about about, going forward, the new 4 Ps, people, purpose, planet, profits. Going forward, how is Disco thinking maybe of the intersection between consumer aspirations, business growth, and sustainability?
Yeah. So I think when we are taught design, the first thing we are taught is consciousness and planet, and so it's a very human-centered discipline. And since we have come here, we've been pushing to get that. So if you look at Magic packaging, if you look at Godrej Magic hand wash bottle, we were the first one to not do label and do embossing. So we are pushing at every possible way. We don't want to compromise on the quality of the product because that's not what we want. We don't want people to use products that are bad quality because of, we're not force-fitting sustainability. It has to be very functional, but at the same time, we have sashayed a lot of our work, like if you look at Godrej Expert Creme that we launched initially, which was copied by a lot of big global players, but it was a bold decision. So we are pushing leadership to be bold about some of these choices. Inclusivity is important to us. Just as designers and creative people, we feel that we have to be at the edge where we are pushing companies and organizations, especially who have the possibility to impact at the scale of the scale that we are. Every small decision is going to make a huge impact. So not putting imagery that could be, gender, it's not gender neutral. We are pushing a lot of that thing. We are having conversation with Swati and Creative Lab together to kind of push that boundary. Look at Crescent #1 example that if you see the whole idea of pushing the narrative itself, and that you'll see in the work that they've done, is to not now play on some of these old ideas of women playing a certain role and kind of get away from that mindset. So we are constantly moving the mindset, and that's our core job. And I think with the younger leadership and a younger team working with us, the way I interact with now, they are our future consumer. And my son, who's 17, our grandchildren are our future consumer, and they are going to ask very different questions when they're making these choices. So that's very important and at core of what Disco is going to do now on. Yeah.
Absolutely. They are certainly asking very different questions, and they expect very different answers as well. But moving to, the creative aspect, the creative lab, and we spoke about this previously as well, it was a huge departure for a company of this size and scale and legacy to make a move like that. Shalini, let me ask you, it's not just, of course, about efficiency gains and cost play, right? It's about building those capabilities. Let's go to the genesis. Can you sum up, how important it is having that creative capability in-house?
Right. I'd like to first off start by saying thanks to Darshan and the work she's done in-house. I think that built a lot of confidence in setting up the Creative Lab in the first place. Cost saving is, of course, very welcome and a fantastic result of in-housing. But for Godrej Creative Lab, the intent is far bigger than that. Otherwise, you're kind of shortchanging the whole idea of in-housing. Now, this is a place where R&D meets strategy, meets design, meets media, meets creative. So I think the excitement is in just the ease of getting the ball rolling and working towards the same goalpost. So when we say capability, I think there are 3 main advantages that I can think of with in-housing. One is egoless collaboration. And I can give you an example of, when Fab was launched, before the creative briefing itself, Darshan was nice enough to call all of us into her workspace and show us prototypes of all the design that was created, that was being still created at the time. So as a creative team, we're already tickled about something new that's exciting, that's coming up. So there is access to information much earlier than in an agency, right? And the intent of doing something that's clutter-breaking starts right there. And I think that makes a huge difference. The second thing is speed of output. And let me double-click on that because I think speed sometimes implies recklessly arriving at something, but that's not the case. I think speed is the result of efficiency. And now I'll shout out to Harsh. I'll give you an example where Sometimes we're working on an idea and we think, hey, instead of one 30-seconder, we've got something that could lend itself to 3 10-seconders. And it's an easy conversation. Hey, Harsh, how can you help us? This is what we've got in mind.
Collaboration.
Yeah, and I think that makes all the difference. In an agency, this would have been a cumbersome, many meetings, etc. So that ease and that efficiency results in speed and very deliberate thinking on the output itself. And the third very important thing is proximity to both business and consumers. You get more empathetic with the marketing guys, so it's not agency versus client, it's just us as an entity.
We have the marketing guys in the room.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic because when you have a common goal and the intent is as pure as that, it starts to show in the work. And even with consumers, a lot of times, and I'll give you another example without digressing. We were working on a brief for South Africa, Inecto, and we'd written a few scripts, and with 15 women, they completely hated the script, okay? And in kind of explaining why they didn't like it, we arrived at something that worked very well for us. Now, if I was in an external agency, it would have just been an email saying, hey, it's not working. But to just have that window into what's going on with consumers, what is their stress that we can solve for, not just in the context of what the brand is, but to understand what's going on with their life, with their cultures right now, I think is a huge plus.
Absolutely. What also sticks out, of course, is the ability to be far more bold and make those decisions. And, the word we like to use is brave work. How does having these capabilities and that proximity, like you mentioned, to, of course, other functions and other resources within the company, how does that all then feed into having bold work, brave work, breakthrough work, work that essentially paves the way, shows the way? Maybe with a few examples, if you could tell us how it has helped.
Okay,
and why it's important, more importantly.
So I'd like to invite you upstairs to the 4th floor, because the door we enter through, there's a line in there that says, leave safe ideas outside. And I think that's, it's such a, imagine walking into office reading that. I think that's a great message to put out. But what happens when you're in-house, and it's also the creative lab, I like the fact that we know what we're doing when we step in, but there's also room to not know the correct answer, because there is no such thing with creative. It is qualitative, it is subjective. And sometimes when you have that freedom to maybe go wrong, when you're not thinking about getting the correct answer, that might actually be the path to doing great work, brave work. Now today, I don't think consumers reward safe work, because you may get lost in a sea of sameness with brands. So our challenge has always been, how do you do brave work that's not reckless or irresponsible? And we've tried to do that. And I think a recent project we worked on for Inecto is one such. And I'd like, maybe we could watch the film. Okay. But it was something that came from consumers when we met them on something else. And sometimes I feel like I want to credit consumers for some of the work we do, because they kind of...
It's honest.
Yeah, it's honest.
And it resonates, it's relevant. Should we see the work?
In South Africa, being a woman of color comes with centuries of inherited weight, systemic racism, stereotypes. A 2021 analysis of South African TV advertising showed that less than 15% of lead roles are given to dark-skinned women, despite them being the majority. The only thing they see when they see us is the color of our skin. Inecto, a hair color brand in 14 vibrant shades, created especially for the native South African woman, wanted to create change.
What color comes to mind when you see me? Let me guess. Red, right? I'm gold. I'm purple. Red, like the color of love and passion. Gold, generous and divine. Purple, royal and mysterious. It takes more than one color to define us.
We are proud women of color by shifting the context of color from skin to the crowns we proudly wear on our heads. From fighting colorism to flaunting color, we flip the script. Not just a campaign, a cultural color shift to reclaim every color that represents how we show up, speak out, and shine through.
Reclaiming color and creativity. Any closing thoughts on the Creative Lab and where it's headed?
I ask myself that every day because I think the rate at which the world is changing, consumers are changing. With Godrej Creative Lab, I think we always like to keep one foot in just the kind of trust that the mother brand has built for herself. And at the same time, how do we keep up with the changing world? So we've got one foot in what we can't move. It's like the roots of a tree, and then how to kind of keep evolving. That's the goal with Godrej Creative Lab, and hopefully we want to do work that is not just brave, but also something that makes a lot of business sense, and keep our consumers at the heart of whatever we do. That's about it.
That's the ultimate. Stay true to your roots and stay relevant. And coming to the final segment, Harsh, I'm going to ask you, of course, GCPL, massive media spends globally. Tell me, how important is it, therefore, the idea of in-housing when it comes to media? Why is it important? Especially today, very complex media age, lots of technology infusion, keeping all that in mind and of course the market realities. We know how effective in-housing has been from a cost perspective, like we were talking about some global examples as well. The numbers are there. But beyond that also, what are you gaining?
Yeah, so as far as the media practice is concerned, I think we are looking for, as you put it, purposeful partnerships, right? And it's not like we are going out and in-housing lock, stock, and barrel. We are seeking a partner ecosystem that is able to add value to us. Having said that, there are certain parts of the business that we've decided to now look at very strongly in-house. So we are taking a balance. So because in the old world, scale was of a certain advantage when it came down to pricing. In the new world, it may or may not be. When we go out and do reservation buying or when we go out and buy television advertising, it's always good to work with large partners outside because they're able to bring that scale and they're able to help recognize the scale at which we are today, right? So that's where we look at external agencies to help us as far as the trading aspect is concerned. But if we look at certain things like programmatic digital buying, that technology is able to do for any advertiser today. And actually over there, scale is detrimental for the advertiser. Right. So
because you need far more agility there as well. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's on a platform, and the platform doesn't recognize that this is advertiser A or advertiser B. It's just about who's bidding at the right price at that point in time, and that's where the role of technology and the role of just getting the entire science behind it right becomes extremely important. So some part of what we're doing is in-housed. Some part of what we're doing is still dependent on partners. Depends on which part is making economic sense for us. The part that we've very strongly in-housed is the media planning aspect of it, because we believe that we have to be very, very close to what marketing is doing, and we have to be almost one when it comes down to deployment, right? So what Darshan creates or what Swati and team create, it has to all come alive at the right time, without any external agenda to it. And as intuitive as that sounds, or as obvious as that sounds, different partners have different agendas to run. Whereas our only agenda is to make sure that media is able to help drive brand growth and business growth in the here and now. So that requires media planning to be extremely close to what the marketing team is thinking. And that's where we've in-housed a lot of our media science and media planning aspect of it, where we're not necessarily dependent on partners.
But when you're looking for partnerships and building that ecosystem, we were talking about this earlier, purposeful partnerships. That's the key term there, right? Can you maybe quickly tell us a little bit more about, what is it that you then look for in your partnerships?
Right. So as we thought about it, there are 4 T's that are important as far as a partner is concerned. The first T is trading, or the price that they're able to get us our inventory at, and which we spoke about, right? And where scale sometimes helps, in-housing sometimes helps. The second T is technology, and the kind of partnerships that they're able to bring, or the partner ecosystem is able to bring. So we work with a partner in Bangalore called Shopalist, for example, who's able to help us look at our programmatic practice in the rightful manner. Similarly, we look at various other partners, like Anaplan is a platform that we work on which we are able to see how media plans can be optimized a lot better. So the second T is technology and the right kind of partnerships happening over there. The third T is around talent and making sure that we are able to help the talent within the organization grow and be ahead of the curve, because a lot is changing as far as the media and marketing ecosystem is concerned. So the latest in the world of ad tech, the latest in the world of MarTech, and partners are able to add that value for us. And finally, troubleshooting is the fourth T, where we are able to look at, where we encourage partners to come and give us an outside-in view as to what is it that competitors are doing, or what is it that our consumers are doing, and how is it that we are able to take advantage of their learning into our problems, because many of the problems are common. And how is it that we are able to then identify the right solve? So bringing these 4 T's together through a partner ecosystem is what we are dependent on.
Let's zoom in a little bit on one of those T's, which is technology, Harsh, and tell me a little bit about MASH, which is the in-house media algo. How is it helping you?
So MASH is a place where we are able to bring in the marketing inputs and the media inputs. Our basic thought process is that we have to reach out to maximum number of consumers at the cheapest cost in the most effective manner, right? And so there are 3 elements to it, which is to see where the marketing or where the consumer is at, right? And hence where the affordability lies to get to that particular consumer. The second part is then reaching that consumer at the cheapest cost as far as media options are concerned. So there is a complex media ecosystem that doesn't talk necessarily to each other, right? Because measurement systems haven't evolved to give us one view of the consumer. So bringing all of that in one place at the right price. And the third is the attention matrix, or the fact that all mediums are not the same. So effectiveness of a medium is the third element. And when all 3 of these come together, it's quite a complex ecosystem, much like probably a fund manager has to look at various aspects before deciding which particular stock to pick up, or on a particular day, what trade call to give. Similarly, because it's a changing ecosystem, we've brought all of this into one place, and MASH is able to algorithmically build that out for us such that we are able to reach consumers in different parts of the country at the cheapest cost. And for us, all consumers are the same. So it's just about making sure that we are able to maximize reach at the lowest cost, irrespective of where the consumer is sitting.
Absolutely. One of the things that stuck out for me in my conversations with the 3 of you on stage, as well as when we were talking about earlier, is we talk about tech all the time, but what I really appreciate is talking about the brain, the human capital, the talent, and we spoke about it in different aspects, whether it is employees or, the next generation. So while we talk about some of these gains of in-housing, tell me how it impacts talent. Maybe, Harsh, you can start, and I'll quickly just go to the 3 of you all before we wrap up, because that's the future, right? So how does it impact talent? How do you get the best people at GCPL?
I think for us, when I joined 2 years back and took a step back, I've been with the agency ecosystem for about 13 years and with the broadcaster for 7 years before that. And I sat back and looked at where genuinely exciting work is happening and where a company is growing pretty fast. and doing stuff which resonated with me. GCPL stood out at that point in time for me to come in. And then we've built a team over here which is a combination of people who worked at the advertisers end, at the agencies end, and at media owners end. And the common theme that I found across is that we are a lot more aligned over here to where business is at. Right? We are a lot closer to business. There is no agenda. The only agenda for us is that business has to grow. And when you speak to like-minded professionals and they're able to see that they're a lot closer to business, they feel excited about coming to a place like this, because we are not so big that we are bureaucratic or we are led by instructions. We are not so small that it's meaningless over here. So we are today in one of the top, we are amongst the top advertisers in this country. We are amongst top advertisers in Indonesia. We are we're investing pretty aggressively in other parts of the world as well. And when we are sitting in an organization which is growing at the pace, and the thought process is pretty clear, the talent automatically feels like they want to be a part of this place.
And there's a sense of ownership.
Absolutely.
Absolute sense of ownership. And I'm going to go in the reverse order now, and maybe I'll come to you next, Shalini, to answer that same question on some of the real impacts, and one of that is talent. So how are you seeing, this current generation, the next generation, responding to this call?
Okay. So interestingly, yesterday we were trying to hire some trainees, and we sent out a copy test. I sent them a copy test, and one of them is using AI, okay? Because there's no shying away from the fact that it will be used. Now, how do you kind of adapt to that? And I'll draw another parallel. A lot of times with creative, as you're giving feedback, you gain clarity on what to do. Because it takes a junior sometimes to write something that you feel like, hey, that's not working because of this, and therefore let's do this. And technology and AI that way is that junior. So when you're writing a prompt, you often start realizing what you actually want. So I'm not going to be cheeky about it. Currently, the rate at which it's changing, I can only answer from today's perspective. I think it helps strengthen talent from a sense of clarity and what you want for it to do. So even when we hire talent and we look for people, we want that openness to be there, and see how they can, how can they get better at it while using technology. But I think a lot of rights and what intellectual property means, I think a lot of those are still in question globally. So I'm not going to touch upon that. That is still a bit in a gray area. But that's my way of looking at talent and technology.
It's certainly interesting times when it comes to how all of us are using Gen AI today, and it's how you use it ultimately. But great point about how it sort of helps with that clarity as you keep discovering that technology. Darshan, I want to come to you because, we think of like we were talking about earlier, we think of design as, aesthetics, or how the color of something or the shape of something. And, but design goes far beyond that. It's fundamental. Yeah. And while a few years ago, we were all talking about design thinking, it's sort of been taken over right now by talk about AI. But again, it's such a fundamental, design is so fundamental to business and brands. So when it comes to talent, how do you bring that talent back in? Because we've seen a lot of design talent leaving industries, doing other things, but you are providing a space for it to make material impact and difference to brands and businesses. So your closing remarks on talent.
Yeah, so I think specifically in this subject of design, India's journey has been relatively new. When I say design, I mean the pure form of design function. We have so many design institutes, and now that we have created a space here, we also need talent who are like-minded and are trained. There are no role models in India. There are no industries who excel this in a way that becomes a sustained model. So it comes with a lot of responsibility, and often I ask that what next now that we have this team, if one person goes in, what's going to happen now? How this becomes an integral part of value creation within an organization. There is one. So the way I've taken for our function is that I've also taken extra time out of my work, and I go back to school and give back, educate, bring those people, the young talent in, train them. It allows me to see, how good the talent is and what is trainable. There's a lot of training that is required because I think we have enough knowledge. Godrej also here has good problems to solve for. That becomes less hypothetical and it becomes almost like real time for them to also test themselves out, brings a lot of excitement. They can prototype. I can connect them with various functions. Like she mentioned, that there's so much knowledge available. That's more true when it's not like a classroom project. So I think with all of that, what we are trying to do is also somewhere kind of land through design in India, sort of, and own that space through what we do, because unlike other worlds, we have still not reached a point where design in India is still an aesthetic, like if you'll see in Japan or any of the Western countries. But I see this conversation happenings more and more in design community, especially youngsters, because there are so many schools now. So idea is participate a little bit in that through what we do and create a good example of using a young talent and integrating them well in time and give them time and be patient with them because it takes time.
And create a powerful engine for growth. Well, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful discussion, and I'm hoping to, zoom in a lot of these aspects during the course of, the chats that we'll have very soon. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me as well. Thank you.
Dilshad, if you can stay on stage, I'll invite Sudhir to, of course. Great. Next up, Asif Malbari for the rest of the world.
So thanks first for coming over. Let me move on to the rest of our clusters. It's been a journey which has been, I would say, slightly difficult for us as we kind of work through the different clusters. I think as it stands today, we are feeling more confident on our businesses across the world than what we were a year back and what we were possibly 3 years back. So we've had a good run. We kind of see the rest of the world being a force multiplier to our business in India. And we have taken certain steps in that direction. I'll talk through some of those actions which have already happened, and you'll see some more actions happening as we go along. So let me first start off with Indonesia. In Indonesia, for a period of 5 years, growth had been a challenge. From 18 to 23, our UVG was only 1%. We were struggling in terms of growing. The last 2 years have been years of strong growth. We've delivered close to 9% UVG. I would take out possibly 200, 300 bips out of that because it was on actually a base effect. But still 2 years, each quarter consistently delivering a robust mid to high single-digit UVG has been a relatively good performance, not only compared with, I would say, at an overall company performance level, but compared with a lot of peers. We've been seeing the market conditions have been equally volatile. We've seen a lot of global MNCs having their share of trouble in that market, but the company and the management have been able to build a reasonable amount of competitive moat. I think this growth has come on top of 3 things. One is really strong competitive products. We've strengthened our product portfolio. It's come on the back of the expertise which we have in these categories in R&D in India. We're very fortunate that our portfolios in India and in Indonesia actually mirror each other. That gives us our ability to kind of piggy bank onto the huge capabilities which we as GCPL have. And hence, there's been a huge strengthening of the product portfolio in Indonesia. We've invested significantly behind brands, so the brands are much, much more stronger. We've moved away and we've reduced investment in trade and put it behind brands. We've kind of taken up ATLs to the tune of 200 bips over this period of time. And a drastic transformation, which we've spoken to you about, in terms of moving out from a model where we were running a branch network to working with an RD ecosystem, which has meant that we've been able to take up distribution by 20%. So structurally solving for a lot of pieces, making the business structurally stronger and delivering growth has been a good kind of run through. I think this is actually more satisfying in terms of where the growth has come from. Sudhir spoke about the 3 big wins which we have in terms of SKUs. It's actually played out over a period of 2 years in Indonesia. A large portion of the organic delta growth in Indonesia has come through basically HI, LV, shampoo, hair color, and pocket. And it's now come to a situation where it's a reasonable salience. It's actually a double-digit salience of our Indonesia business, which shows that when you have blockbuster wins, the impact it can have on a large business is significant. And it's kind of got proven in Indonesia. So that's been a great journey there. As we go along, it's going to be a simple strategy. Work on putting in products where we have a competitive advantage. We are launching HIT, anti-roach. There we are kind of introducing the next set of air care products for cars. And with that, we're reasonably confident that the Indonesia business has solved the structural challenges and should hence give us a range-bound performance as we go along. A bit more volatile when it came to past performance in terms of the 2 other clusters, GOM and Latin America. The challenges were on both. It was on growth and profitability. Historical growths were single digit and profitability was really poor. In addition to that, the performance was also extremely volatile. We used to kind of see quarter-to-quarter variances in our businesses which were severely impacting our consolidated performance. What we saw in 2025 actually from external volatility was no different. We saw currency volatility of a different magnitude. As we began the year in Nigeria, the currency actually depreciated by close to 100%. The Naira was somewhere around 600, it went to kind of touching around 1800, 1900, then appreciated, which is like very, very unusual. It appreciated from 1800, went down to 1200, and then kind of moved back to around 1500. This kind of choppiness for a period of 6 months meant a complete chaos in the market. We then had a mega issue in terms of Mozambique, where the country went through a fair amount of turmoil. The country was shut down for periods of time. And for us, it was a big impact because our supply chain in RSA depends on Mozambique. So it was a serious issue in terms of supplies coming there. And for a couple of weeks in South Africa, the Spaza shops were shut down. They went through a massive re-registration process where they needed to kind of register themselves, prove who's running it, and start. So volatility has been as severe as we've seen in the past. And I think this is likely to continue given that we operate in Africa and Latin America, across the world, in multiple countries. And hence, we somehow have to kind of work out ways and means in which we can deal with the volatility rather than hope and pray that volatility is not there in the market. So I think that's going to be the difference when it comes to these 2 clusters. But I think we've learned our way to navigate these volatilities better. And to that extent, last year was a profitability reset for GOM. When we spoke same time last year, we had told you all that we'll take 2 years. We had an aspiration to get to 15% margin in 2 years. We're happy to report back that we've been able to do that a year ahead of time. We've moved the EBITDAs of the cluster from close to 250, which is what we were doing on an average historically, to 400 crores. The margins are now at a healthy 15%. And with this fix, we'll consolidate margins here, work on sequentially improving them as we go along, and now kind of focusing on growing the business. So this has been a good run for us. When it comes to the LATAM and other segment, again, 2 years back, we were at 4%. We've doubled the EBITDA to 8%, so we have got the business on an improved margin profile. There are plans to ensure that, again, this segment goes to a double-digit EBITDA in a defined period of time. We hope it kind of falls in place by next year. And then again, we kind of build on both these segments to take them to mid to high teens in terms of margin profile. The question would be, where have the profits come from? A lot of the savings have been structural. We've worked through savings on the supply chain, and hence there have been permanent structural changes which we've been able to kind of get to the business. We've significantly simplified the organization and reduced our fixed overheads. And we've played strategic pricing basis foreign exchange pretty much by the month. And this is a very fine balance in terms of profitable growth, which we've kind of institutionalized across the organization, where playing the right balance between margins and growth and ensuring that we kind of create a healthy business for the future is what we've been doing through, pretty much through across each and every country. I'm going to share 2 examples under what we've done on the supply chain part and on overheads to kind of give a flavor of how large the transformations can be on some of these and how does it kind of structurally solve. So let me take the example of a supply chain restructuring which we did last month in Chile. Chile is a reasonable sized country. We had a manufacturing operation there. In March, we've shut the factory down. It's been completely restructured. We've paid settlements to all the employees there. And we've completely moved the sourcing to India. So from March onwards, Chile gets its supplies on import model through India. The impact of that is expected to be around close to 12% EBITDA improvement for the business. So it's a very, very large kind of improvement you've got. And this is just one example. There have been similar projects where we've kind of restructured within a country the manufacturing operations. We've brought in, I would say, appropriate level of automation. We've brought in productivity improvements. We've kind of looked at which are the parts of the business which are really not fit for purpose, and we've kind of hence recalibrated those to make shifts in terms of supply chain costs. In terms of overheads, if I had to look at the GOM overheads, it's actually gone down by 250 bips against our historical average to last year. We've delayered the organization, and while on one hand it's a fair amount of margin improvement, what it has done is made our organization significantly more agile, and hence we believe we've actually added muscle back to the organization rather than kind of take out muscle. It's kind of made us more stronger in terms of our ability to kind of compete, act fast, and grow. The top line has been poor, and we had kind of shared with you actually at the time of Q1 that there will be a pain for a few quarters in terms of the top line. We did take 3 quarters to kind of correct for certain structural pieces which we believed were the right thing to do for the long run. Some of it was about taking out SKUs which added nothing to really the bottom line. They were bleeds onto the portfolio. We needed to kind of clean up that portfolio, get the portfolio strong. In addition to that, in certain geographies like West Africa, etc., the interest cost is as high as 30%. It made no sense to kind of ensure that we keep excessive inventory with our stockists and super stockists and incur that kind of interest cost. So we've kind of simplified the supply chain there, the go-to-market, and moved into creating storage within our own factory, moved on to a model of servicing in just in time, released the supplier, the stockist inventory, which then can be deployed back into margins and into growth. Again, we believe we've done a structural solve, not only from a margin perspective, but also from a growth perspective, because in Q1, our CC forts were somewhere around 70%. As we speak, our CC forts have crossed 90%, which means we're getting better servicing to trade, and we are getting it at a cost which is much lower. But it was a one-time pain which we had to take. Most of this restructuring, or I would say all of this restructuring on top line is behind us, and hence we should now kind of be able to deliver a fairly consistent turnover on an annualized basis. I think I'll leave you with the fact that there will be always some volatility with this region will offer, and hence when you look at GOM and LATAM, it's always better to look at annualize numbers rather than read too much into a few bips of growth moving up and down in a quarter, because the external environment throws some challenges, and it's better to kind of respect those challenges rather than kind of go behind a few bips of growth here and there. But on an annualized basis, we will be able to deliver both growth and profit in a more robust fashion. As we've been doing that, on hair fashion business, where we are the market leaders across Africa, we have been working on strengthening our brands in each region. An example of that would be OMB, which has been leading the entire upgradation story in South Africa. We've realized the brand can go larger. There are multiple consumer needs in terms of styles which we were not meeting the requirements. So we're making the brand much larger in terms of what we're offering. OMB was earlier available in a styles which could cater to only certain short styles. We've launched last month OMB 2X, which kind of is able to cater to significantly more styles. So we will ensure that market by market, we will make our brands much larger. And at the same time, we have within the portfolio certain hero SKUs. We're seeing how we expand them across geographies. And that again plays to our strength, because we are, compared to other smaller players who operate or who are strong in selected geographies, we have a pan-African presence. And hence, once we've got certain hero SKUs in terms of fashion, we're able to take it far and wide. So Natural Twist has been a stellar product or a crochet in West Africa. Last quarter, we've taken it to South. We've launched it in Mozambique, Zambia, and it has had a great success. We'll continue to kind of hence build the brand much stronger as we go along. I think again, coming back to the three stellar SKUs which we have, a great run in parts of the geography. Shampoo hair color has kind of had an absolute run in Latin America. LV has started doing well in geographies where we've kind of introduced it, and Air is possibly the golden bullet which cuts through each geography. Sudhi spoke about it. It's already kind of gone under Pradeep through a Godrej International operation to close to 80 countries, and we've had a great run in all. I'm going to play the ad in terms of what shampoo hair color did, not only as an SKU, but to the entire business in Argentina. So I'll move to that AV.
Continuing with our strategy in our role as market leaders, we promote the development of the category through innovations such as the launch of Isue Express. Starting from the consumer insight that the dyeing process is tedious, the time required, the application. This beauty routine is lived as less than an enjoyable experience. For this reason, the most disruptive and innovative product of recent years in Argentina was born: Isue Express Hair Coloring Shampoo. This product fulfills the promise of dyeing the hair in just 5 minutes. The product reached 13% in volume and 15% in values over Isue Sachet, core business, and with only 3 shades. Not only did consumers fall in love with Isue Express,
but we managed to persuade some clients to open the doors and list in Isue with this innovation.
Pharmacity, the #1 pharmacy chain in Argentina that represents 30% of hair color in the channel, incorporated Isue Express. This became a milestone for Godrej, being the first hair color product that we sell to this client, increasing our level of distribution significantly.
On the other one, which is Air, we've been taking it to multiple countries. In Q4, Actually, from second half last year, we've been expanding it into parts of Africa. We've seen great early success in various countries. The journey will be to keep expanding these blockbusters. And hence, you will go through a transformation in terms of product, where we will build a much significantly larger FMCG portfolio and a larger portfolio on global blockbusters into both GOM and LATAM as we go through. You heard Shalini speak about Enecto. Again, while we are building on to new levers of growth, some of these brands are iconic. Enecto is a brand which is a market leader in hair color, and we are ensuring that we're investing back in terms of building these and making them stronger. Yeah. So the strategy going forward is going to be actually very simple. On hair fashion, we will ensure that we maintain our leadership. We are the #1 brand in Africa. We will maintain our leadership through profitable growth. And when it comes to FMCG, we will actually build a significantly larger business on the back of the expertise which we have, on the back of the innovations we have, and on the back of these global blockbusters. So it's actually a single 2-point strategy in terms of growth. When it comes to profitability, we will continue to optimize the manufacturing footprint, make it simple, ensure that we take out as much of the invisible, consumer invisible costs which we can, and drive those cost efficiencies. So it's going to be these 4 points which we'll do it ruthlessly, and I think we should be able to hence sequentially keep moving up from where we stand. Yeah, so that was a quick snapshot of the international business. I'll go on to summarizing a very quick few tables in terms of the financials, and then move on to one important slide which I'm sure you were expecting from us. In terms of UVG, while I think we were very upfront that we've not liked, or we were not happy with where we've reached on growth, and we wanted to kind of go ahead of that. But still, we've been able to, on standalone basis, deliver growths which are ahead of median, and I think that's a good first starting step to solidify and then kind of move on from there. International business margins have moved up sequentially. We still believe that there is more juice to be kind of taken out from a margins perspective, and the entire international portfolio margins should kind of sequentially keep moving up, albeit the pace may be a bit more lower than what we've seen in the past. With this, our consolidated margins are actually now at 21%, and these fundamentally are the high levels of margin which we've kind of delivered as a company. The highest level of margins as a company historically have been 21-22%. They've gone down a couple of points lower in bad years. They've kind of gone up to 21-22 in good years. I think the good thing about the 21% last year was the improvements have been structural. They've been broadly permanent, while the challenges we faced were a bit temporary because of commodity prices in India, and hence we should be able to kind of see some of that kind of come back. So we spoke about cash flow. We built a strong focus in terms of cash flow, and last year when we had met, we had kind of spoken to you all about a formal dividend policy. We lived up to it. We've been paying dividend every quarter. Last year we had a cash outflow of dividend of 2,500 crores. Every quarter now, over the last 3 quarters, we've been paying 500 crores per quarter. We've put a formal dividend policy that we'll ensure that we'll pay 50% plus minus 20%. We've gone to kind of a little bit above that with no kind of specific need. Last year, we thought we should ensure that we pay out the entire cash flow to the shareholders. We will have a little bit of higher capex for another year and a half, 2 years. The 2 key plants have commissioned. There are a few more lines getting commissioned in these plants, so capex will be slightly higher. But to give you all a context, these are multi-decadal kind of units. Once set up, they take care of multi-decades of growth, and then you need only a little bit of incremental capex to support growth. So these are one-time kind of capexes, which after 2 years should start coming down. Guidance for next year. We will see performance improve sequentially at this stage as we see it. Second half should be better than first half. Sudhi spoke about commodity prices. Palm had peaked over the last year and a half, month and a half, it has started kind of correcting back. So we will need to kind of price to replacement, and hence you will see some challenge in terms of the inventory which you hold, and hence the margin in first half. On standalone volume, we believe we should be able to deliver mid to high single digit underlying volume growth. At a consolidated revenue, we should be able to deliver a high single digit revenue growth. And on EBITDA, we should be able to deliver a double digit EBITDA growth. Yeah. So I think with that, I'll end the presentation and go on to Q&A.
I'm guessing this is the most important slide, so I'll leave it on for a minute. But we'll ask Sudhir and Asif to please join us on stage. So I request everyone to please raise your hands, and I'll just select whom we can pick on asking questions. Cool. Mihir, we'll start with you.
I think you'll have to say sorry to Abneesh that because it is not on the... Abneesh, sorry. I mean, we're just going by raise of hands.
Sorry, Abneesh. Thank you, Asif, Sudhir, and Vishal. So firstly, on the guidance, it seems to be lower. You know, we did a much better margin this time around, despite the compression in palm. You know, one expected that ideally volume growth or the EBITDA growth should have been higher. And even you've trimmed down your volume growth assumptions. You know, so first question is on the guidance bit. It seems to be lower. Are you building in some conservatism, or are we missing out certain things?
Sure. You want me to answer on EBITDA? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I think firstly, as I shared, on EBITDA, we've given a guidance on double digit. As we kind of begin the year from a Q1 perspective and I think part Q2, we've already seen commodities kind of start correcting. We were, in a way, kind of forecasting this scenario. Dorab, who kind of looks after oil buying for the group as a whole, around 2.5 months back in Malaysia in the public forum had kind of spoken about palm oil softening. And hence, keeping that in mind, it made sense to kind of be a little bit, I would say, conservative when it came to pricing, because you do not want to kind of bring in too much volatility in terms of taking prices up and then taking down. So we have been kind of pricing to replacement rather than pricing to, you know, the current cost. And hence, with the way the commodities are kind of looking, there's going to be a period of temporary pain in terms of margins. But I think what's important is how do we kind of exit the year, what's the shape of margins in the second half. To me, that's more structural and that's what's more important. And I think that's where the guidance comes in.
Understood. Secondly, Sudhir, maybe if I can just double click on the volume growth number, what requires you know, GCPL to do to take, you know, from volume growth from current 4-5% maybe to 7-8% levels that we were trying to target earlier? Will it be new product developments? Will be you know, will it be a key driver? But there also you've changed your strategy. You're moving to fewer new NPDs going forward. Will it be the Vistar van operations that you're doing? But there again, you know, we are seeing that maybe there's a possibility of low-hanging fruits being already plucked. Or will it largely come from core or market recovery? I understand it'll be a mix of all the three, but I wanted to just understand, you know, from a laddering point, which will be the higher to lower one for us to move from mid to high single-digit growth?
Yeah, no, as Asif had said, we are aiming for mid to high single-digit volume growth in India. I think last year was a little lower than expectation for a variety of reasons, and largely to do with soap construction and also contraction and also a little bit of slowdown. So we are kind of internally looking at the kind of numbers you're talking about. I think the construct is a simple one. If you take our portfolio, it's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in 3 segments. Soaps will grow volumes at 2% odd. The others will grow volumes at 15% odd. HI has to ramp up volumes to about even 6 to 7%, and then we'll be in high single-digit volume growth. I think that's the broad construct of how we can get from mid means, let's say somewhere, let's say 5.5, 6 to 8 is really what we think is realistic for the year going forward. It could be shade lower, it could be higher as well, because HI, I don't know how well the innovation will fire. I mean, but I would say my median here is that, you know, we should get 7% odd volume in HI this year is what. I'll be disappointed if we don't get that.
Got it. And just lastly on gross margins again, fair to assume that you are no longer going to take more price cuts because raw materials have started to soften. So will that be a fair assumption, one? And secondly, too soon to think about price cuts as well, because we are anyway seeing a significant compression. So can we say the price cuts is not in the horizon, at least for the next few quarters? Any clarification on these two?
Yeah, I mean, it's too soon because, you know, palm prices have just fallen now. After palm falls, PFAD and some of the palm complex has to fall. Then there is, of course, pipelines that we're sitting on. So while this only tells you what's going to happen 4 or 5 months from now, odds are PFAD and PKFAD and the other palm complex will fall at the same rate. Also, crude oil prices are quite low, so it's not like biodiesel demand is likely to shoot up. So I would say that after 3-4 months we're sitting on old stock, so you're going to have it's going to look pretty dire. But after that, things should improve. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about price hikes, you're probably right, but price cuts I don't know yet, because it hasn't fallen that much yet, PFAD and all.
Assuming same prices for some more time, so nothing on the horizon then.
Yeah, probably.
Got it.
The last round of price hikes have just gone in 20 days ago. We'll probably see what to do.
Thank you. Wishing you all the way best.
Great. The gentleman beside, yes.
Good afternoon. I had just one question that throughout your strategic interventions and strategies from past 3 years, how much can you give insights on how much the seasonality aspect has reduced on an overall business perspective? As you mentioned in your initial remarks, there were a lot of volatility, either of one segment at domestic or international used to get one-offs. Can you give some range or something that going forward, how you look at that the volatility in your across overall businesses has been reduced and where it can go forward? Thanks.
So firstly, I feel the volatility in our business, you know, I would leave Q3 aside where we really didn't show any volume growth and it was a bit of an exceptional quarter. But if you take 10 quarters, our volume growth in India has been in the region of between 4 and 8. I mean, so you know, it's been reasonably stable in a kind of mid-single digit, high single digit range. See, there are 2-3 components of volatility that our business has. One component of volatility is Forex volatility in Latin America and GOM. That's nothing we can do about it. We have to deal with it. The second component of volatility is on seasonality in household insecticide. We have a better reading of it. We now have technology and tools which give us an index seasonality of household insecticide. So we're able to read and transparently communicate with you guys. We'll transparently communicate with you this. For example, last quarter, while we did well in HI, it was on the back of a good season, but we did better than the season. So we're able to read that. I mean, we have to live with that. And what happens in household insecticide is monthly volatility can be extreme. It can be between 85 and 115 of the index. Quarterly volatility is kind of between 92, 93, and 106, 107. That's still volatile. Annual volatility in HI is between 98 and 102. This is how the volatility of seasonality is in HI. So we will try when we communicate to you, when we do well in HI, we'll say how much of it we thought was because of season, how much was because of us, and vice versa. And over a long period of time, at least we'll be able to communicate the volatility to you on HI.
Thank you.
Great. Yes.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. This is Harith here from Investec.
My first question was on HI. So, you mentioned that incense sticks is doing very well as a category. Growth rates are still very high. I just wanted to understand, given that we are looking at a market share play here, how do we look at the gross margin movement in HI as a category? Do we believe that there is for the next 2 years, there could be a situation where, incense sticks grows faster and we do see a little bit of a, lower gross margin profile of that entire category? The reason I ask is, this HI growing at a faster pace typically would add to the GM for the India portfolio. So just wanted to get your sense on how do you play that through over the next 2 years?
So Harit, as I said, I'm not able to predict this. So we can only predict scenarios and what we act on. So the first thing that we don't know what is the relative, how fast will incense sticks grow and how fast will premiumization happen. If incense sticks grows really fast and premiumization is slow, it will have an impact on margins. If incense sticks grows moderately fast and premiums goes fast, like happened, for example, in the last quarter, we will grow margins, right? So this is the situation, and we have to plan for what happens. In terms of actions, what do we do? In terms of actions, we must take up our gross margins on incense sticks to at least respectable levels. It will never be what the premium parts do, but let's take it to, let's cross the 20s in terms of gross margin. So the action there is, in half the country, we've taken up price from 10 to 15, 50% price hike, and it hasn't affected volume so far. So we will try and inch up. We will try, from our side, we will try and see what we can do to grow our share of incense sticks without growing the category, right? And that's a bit of a hard thing to do because the more you put effort, the category also grows, right? And the third thing that we will do is to put all our resources behind gaining market share within electrics and aerosols and grow those faster. But there is a range of gross margin. I don't think that range is more than a couple of 100 bips over 3 years between the best case and the worst case when you draw it out. And a couple of 100 bips for household insecticide in India will be maybe 100, 150 bips of gross margin for the entire business. That we will have to manage from somewhere else in the portfolio in order to keep our financials.
Thank you.
I'll also add possibly, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also about EBITDAs.
Right.
And while there's gross margin, there is leverage which you get from an ATL perspective. Some of these products don't require even manufacturing investments. And hence, from an EBITDA perspective, the situations with the actions we're taking now in terms of pricing is not as much of a gap when it comes to at a gross margin level.
And the second question was on India EBITDA margins only. So, if you look at the last 2 years, the margins were a little bit higher this year, obviously, because of the soap impact. But if I had a 2-year lens into India EBITDA margins, assuming that, some of this commodity pressure goes away and some of the media spends that you spoke about are a little more structural in nature, should you assume that in a 2-year, 3-year period, the EBITDA margins are actually higher than what we've seen at historical levels, at peaks, etc.? Just doing the math on, palm oil benefits incrementally as well as the media benefits that you get.
Yeah, so I think we've spoken about our normative levels for India being between 24 to 27. Last year, in second half, we breached those levels. We kind of went down to 22.5 from a second half perspective. Clearly, the idea will be to kind of bring back the margins into the normative levels in the medium term, which is 2 to 3 years. Now, within that, there are multiple things which play out. There is a portfolio, there is growth, there is leverage, so I think within that there will be, again, it's very difficult to kind of gauge where will palm oil be in a particular point of time, but the idea will be to operate within the band, which is a normative band.
But Harit, our priority, and it's difficult saying it after a year like this, where we, or a quarter like this, but our priority continues to remain volume growth, and I continue to think that we will succeed if we can get this business to double. It doesn't look like, as soon as I wanted it to happen, to get it to double-digit volumes. And some of it we'll do from our organic portfolio, but some of it, things like pet, which will take a few years, will start then adding volume growth to the Indian business. So our priority will always be in India to see how we can hit this kind of lighthouse of double-digit volume. So even after getting to high single-digit volume, we will not be satisfied. We will want to inch this up to closer to 9 volume is what mentally we want to do. And we'll try whatever we can to do that. And because we do have a good balance sheet, we've got good margins, so we'll try and get that there.
Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivek, next, then Percy.
Hi. 3 questions from my side here.
The first is, Sudhir, I understand for you it's a bit of a tightrope on incense stick, but my question is, from the other side, if you take up prices, let's say from 10 to 15, which you have done, I think, in one state so far, what is the risk for you in case, because you said that, let's say, incense stick should, in your view, peak at 35% or thereabouts, let's say, there is still a long way to go, right? So what is the risk that you will actually lose out on that? Because again, the Chinese and the illicit, illegal will continue to gain share. How do you balance out the both?
We'll have to keep learning, Vivek. There has to be a heuristic way. I think we have the cards in our hands right now because we've got good molecule, we've got good shares in premium. We're now market leaders in incense. So in a sense, we've got a better control of this market. We will have to see what happens if you take incense to 15. How much are we able to grow? If we advertise incense, what happens? If we don't advertise incense, what happens? We're right now experimenting, for example, in Andhra on a campaign. I don't think we showed it, maybe we should have, with a news campaign with Barkha Dutt, almost a news thing with 20 seconds, which is pretty much unbranded and saying that incense sticks are unsafe. So we're running a series of experiments to say that how we can maximize value within HI. I think the good news is that the levers are in our hands right now. And it's only now a question of finessing it in terms of maximizing it. The answer to that question of what is the right formula, I don't know right now. And it will take us some time to say, hey, this is the right formula, 15 rupee incense stick without advertising, or maybe 15 rupee with advertising in the south, in the north, 10 rupees without advertising, bringing down prices of aerosols, which is what we've done, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a few balls in the air on the right mix here. Till incense sticks reaches its natural plateau, we'll have to play this. Once incense sticks reaches its natural plateau, we will have a bumper few years of upgradation from incense sticks.
Got it. Second question, I've seen a lot of CEOs saying less is more. You have actually taken it to a different level, saying much less is much more. But when I look at your growth portfolio, let's say pet care, sexual wellness, deodorants, liquid detergent, do you think that part of the portfolio, so you have reduced SKUs, inventory, all of that, cash flows, what Asif spoke about. But do you think that that piece is now getting a bit more complicated or, there are too many things happening there?
I think that's a fair comment, and I think there are some learnings here on pet care, for example. Rob, I don't know if he's here, but we're running pet care as pretty much a separate company. So Rob is the CEO. It has very little or nothing to do with GCPL operations except ownership. So it's almost like a capital, and some amount of help is there on capabilities of marketing capabilities and design capabilities that you saw here. So maybe an increasing model that we may see, maybe on RCCL, maybe we could have done a little bit more of that, which is seen how to keep some of these businesses. I don't think in laundry we can do that, and I think laundry is frankly 2 SKUs. So in the scheme of things, laundry is not doing it. But I do think that there's again a model that needs to be worked out because, see, we're a unique time in India where there will be, notwithstanding what has happened in the last few years, there will be rapid growth in HPC and FMCG coming up. We're among the few companies that can take advantage of it. There are 6 or 7 categories where we have the capability to compete and win. The question we have to ask ourselves is how do we do it without each individual losing simplicity? I would say in RCCL, perhaps it was a step back. In pet care, for example, there is no complexity to GCPL. It's a completely different finance team. Nothing is there except Asif, me, and Sumit, we kind of interact. It's a complete Chinese wall with GCPL. Perhaps that's how we may have to increasingly think about balancing, keeping core simplicity and cash flows from core business, but also aggressively expanding TAM in India because these kind of opportunities don't come your way that often. So, we've got to play it aggressively.
Got it. And last question, slightly on the macro. Your presentation focused a bit more on what you are going to do, what next year outlook would be. Can you just give your views on India, let's say rural, urban from an industry standpoint? How do you see F26? And specifically also, what I read, what I understand is Indonesia also is going through a bit of a turmoil with the leadership change in the country. Can you just talk about both these markets? That's my last question.
So I think, these are questions that everybody will ask. I think, I kept this prediction of what I think will happen to India because we have to compete and win regardless of what happens. And I don't have any particular view on it, but my instinct tells me that consumption in India, things may reverse in India because what we've seen in the last 5 years post-COVID actually is a K-shape where the top 20% has been doing really well and the bottom 80%, whether it's rural or urban poor, hasn't. I think there are a few signs that may reverse, and maybe I'm being optimistic. One of them definitely has been food price inflation, which has come down in the last 2-3 months. So 18 months food price inflation, I read an article in Indian Express which said was 8.5%. And the El Nino effect on food price inflation and consumption. Second is that I do think that the government grants both the income tax relief, which should come to bear from this month onwards. It's almost 1 lakh crore being released into consumption, along with a lot of the other schemes, and also the pay commission, which I believe is coming up next year. We've also seen in FMCG that pay commission correlates quite a lot to FMCG consumption. So my feeling is a little bit more bullish on FMCG than I have been in the last 2-3 years myself. Indonesia, there does seem to be pressure in Indonesia that is mounting. Indonesia had a good 2-3 years of consumption post-COVID, slightly different to India. So you saw that the GDP growths went up, and we actually think that probably consumption has been good. We've been the one multinational that's done reasonably well, otherwise local companies have done well there. But I'm hearing murmurs of a little bit of slowdown. I don't think it's anything radical or dramatic in Indonesia, but there is a little bit of pressure in Indonesia. So I'm a little bit more optimistic about India in FY26 and a little bit less optimistic about Indonesia, but it's a personal view. I mean, I didn't put it up because I have no particular, expertise in it.
Got it. Thank you. All the very best.
Great. Percy, then Amit.
Hi.
Leaving Abneesh aside,
After Amit, I'll put Abneesh.
Hi, Sudhir. Firstly, wanted to ask on HI. So last few years, we've been doing sort of a 0 to 2% kind of volume on HI. You're saying this time you should do at least about 7%. So this 500 to 600 basis point uplift, is it mainly the incense stick which is responsible for this? Or do you see, obviously there will be other factors, but is it mainly like 70-80% of this uplift, is it due to incense sticks?
No, I think most of it, in my view, should come from the RNF working on electrics.
Okay, got it. Secondly, just wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on the air fresheners category. So here, I think you've been growing at 20% plus now for a few years. So how long do you think we can sustain that growth? What I'm looking at is, if you've studied some other developing countries like, let's say, Indonesia, how big is the air purifier category, air freshener category as a percentage of some other large FMCG categories? And if it's, let's say, a particular ratio in Indonesia or Vietnam or somewhere else, where are we as a percentage relative in India? So what's the kind of headroom? Can we continue a 20% kind of growth for 5 more years?
Yeah, look, so I had said that, which is Indonesia has 5 times the per capita consumption for twice the GDP. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, Thailand, which is twice the per capita GDP of Indonesia, has 5x the consumption of Indonesia. So this category for many years will grow at 2.5 to 3 times GDP, in our view. So if Indian GDP is 6 to 7%, volume growth of 17 to 18 is what is the rightful thing for this category for many years, for the foreseeable future. So for the foreseeable future, this category should be 15 to 20% volume growth. If we play it well, if we innovate, if we kind of gain market share, that is what we should hold ourselves to in this category.
Got it. On the console EBITDA growth of double digit, I'm sure you've considered some amount of pet care losses also into that calculation. So any kind of estimate you can give us on what kind of pet care losses you're budgeting in for next year and also for...
I'll leave that to Asif, but double digit EBITDA, anything between 10 and 99 is double digit. So.
Yes, sure.
I've got the mic. Yeah, so I think from a pet care perspective, we had kind of shared when we set up the business that over a period of 5 years, we will be kind of investing a cash of 500 crores in the business, and the whole target was to take this business to a 500 crore turnover in a 5-year period. Part of that could be expenses which should come in the form of EBITDA. Part of it will be requirements which will be cash flow. That's how will be kind of, that's how it will play out. Next year is a launch in TN. This year as we speak is a launch in TN. But we are investing ahead of the time in terms of preparing for a larger kind of scale up, and hence costs and expenses will be running ahead of what the top line aspiration will be. Will it be kind of material enough to kind of impact overall GCPL's EBITDA? Answer is no.
Okay, so it's not as if X pet care, your EBITDA growth at console will be like 300 basis points higher or something like that.
300 is like a lot of money.
Okay, got it. Last question from my side is...
Sorry, just to close the loop on profits, I think normally this time of the year is also the time when we kind of talk about PAT. Last year when I had spoken about ETR, I had mentioned that ETR is likely to move up from 29% what it was in the earlier year to 30%. It did move out to there. In Q4, there is a one-time kind of cost of 50 crores in the ETR because we've de-recognized the MAT, because next year we will likely to move into the new tax regime. So you need to just factor in that there is that extra 10% in Q4 which you remove, and hence we did move from 29 to 30% in line with the guidance last year. Next year we will see a 400 bips reduction in ETR for India. So from 30 it will move to 26%, and that's what we're estimating at this stage for next year. So when you're kind of working through your PAT assumptions, there will be a PAT growth which will be ahead of the EBITDA growth next year.
Sure. On body wash, in the HUL analyst meet, they mentioned that they are seeing this category at a huge inflection point and probably will sort of grow at 35 to 40% kind of CAGR for next 5 years kind of a period. So what are you seeing? And specifically with respect to your launch, it's been about a year since you launched your foaming body wash. What has your experience been? What are the learnings, mistakes, if any, course correction, if any?
No, I think I would agree with your view that body wash is probably at inflection point in India and will grow very fast. I would also say that we have been slow on the uptake on body wash. The Synthol body wash signs are encouraging. See, one of the things is, as I said, we're seeing in quick commerce in particular and e-commerce in general, month-on-month sequential growth on body wash. We're still a very small player. We will have to think a little radically on body wash. Synthol body wash is certainly a good bet. We get very good feedback from people who use it. And it's getting a traction of a consumer base. It's a differentiated product. So we also in body wash have to be careful that we don't play a commoditized game in body wash. So we've got to think through building as this category is inflecting, we have to find a way of doing this with reasonably good margins. I would say Synthol body wash is one salvo, but we will probably have to fire a few more and think about what else to do to at least get to equal shares in body wash as we get to in soaps. I mean, that's the starting point.
Sure. That's all from my side. Thanks.
Amit, then Abneesh.
Hi. Sudeep, my question is on the fragrances and deo portfolio, first one. I think I must say there's a great job done on the fragrance side of things in the packaging and the way the variants are. And so it seems like it's a great product in the making. Where I'm coming from is the deo side, where deo traditionally has been a very tough market. It's very A&P hungry, mass market, high trade margins. And I assume when trade margins are that high, there's a reason that they're high. And it's a balance and equilibrium that exists in a certain place. And when you sort of go back to a certain part of SKUs at 99 rupees price point and reducing trade margin a great deal, my sense is that what if assumption here will be that lower price will give a lot of volume uptake, and hence trade should not complain, they get more volume, and hence they make the money from the flow rather than the product margin. But what if the volume doesn't come? Trade would tend to keep the product which give them higher margin and disintermediate you from actually selling it. Don't you see that's a very risky strategy? Unless trade itself participates in that pricing, you may isolate yourself as the one which is actually raising prices on them. And how do you react to that? Sorry about that.
No, I think it's a good question. I think on deodorants, a lot of people ask me the time of acquisition. Firstly, the Indian deodorant market is odd compared to most other countries in the world. It's odd on 2-3 dimensions. It's odd on the dimension of having very small antiperspirants. It is odd on having an aerosol business, which is largely now become a non-aerosol, a 2x business. It is also odd on having a very high price per unit and a very low trade price. These are and therefore relatively low overall margins in the scheme of things. So this is an outlier market when we look at deodorants across the world. So there are one of my things is that over a period of time, the world is the same, consumers are the same, you got to move towards what the world is.
Sure.
So the 3-4 things that we are doing, and I'll come to the pricing as the last one because it is probably the most interesting one and what we're doing to mitigate the risks there. But the first thing is antiperspirant is a strategic move. Long haul like pet care, not going to pay off in the next 2-3 years, but I hope 4-5 years from now, we lead at 99 rupees, an excellent price point for antiperspirant. We lead it. We will succeed or fail, we will persist with antiperspirant. That's number one. Two, as I told you, to kind of see if we can go the Indian way and make 2x into 4x and see that as a second salvo. The third big salvo that we're flying, and there's a fourth one which I'm not going to talk about, I'll talk about when we launch it because we have 4 blockbuster innovations, 3 of which we're talking about now. The third one is learning from air care, where we brought the price down from 169 to 99. It's worked really well for us. It works, so what happens in the sequence of events that happen is when you do this, wholesale stops buying you. Retail immediately buys you, so retail distribution goes up. So the only person who can do this kind of price change is somebody who has wide retail distribution. If you don't have wide retail distribution, you're dependent on wholesale, which plays to our advantage. In the top 3 players, I would say we are the only player in deodorants who's got wide distribution and plays to our advantage. The second thing that happens is that once you start advertising and you put big amounts of money, consumers start buying in retail and retail demand shoots up. 6 months later, wholesale demand starts to pick up. Because this is a risky move in air, we did it first in West Bengal, then in Tamil Nadu, and then in the country. In this particular move, because it is risky for the reasons that you've said, we've done it in Tamil Nadu. If it works in Tamil Nadu, we'll expand it to Andhra Pradesh, which we have now started to do because we think it has worked in Tamil Nadu. And we'll do this gradually, calibrate the risks before doing it nationally. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We don't have to then expand it nationally. But at least we know the kind of model. Sure. I mean, we have to, if we want to take this category, we got to take the bull by the horns and we've got to play 4 big moves and hope 1 or 2 works. This is actually the one I'm personally most confident. If you can bring down the price of this category by half, I think consumption will quadruple. And that's what I think will happen. And only a few players can do this. And we are one of them.
Oh, thanks so much. That's very helpful. My only, skepticism, I don't know whether I know this category enough to even have a skepticism, but my feeling is that in a personal care category such as fragrances, which people kind of associated with how refined that is, maybe lower price can also give a semblance that it is inferior good. And you need to have a very sweet spot price point where...
Yeah, but deodorants is not fragrances. They are different dynamics. Oh. Fragrances is a different dynamic. You saw the bottles on fragrances. As beauty selling, there might be some dimension of brand image. Deodorant globally is a functional category. In India, it has been marketed as a kind of cheap fragrance as a different point. Deodorants globally is a category which is meant for antiperspirancy and sweat. And we got to move the category there.
Okay, got it. Now, very helpful. So my second question is on HI, where obviously you alluded to that 5 to 7% kind of volume growth is coming from RNF and that too through electrics. Can you give us a little bit of more layout in terms of where we are in that launch and in what states and what part of distribution electrics are already there? And I assume that it's launched in some channels and some markets, not all of it. But when you see FY26...
No, it's launched everywhere. It was a bit sequential. Modern trade got launched only in February, actually, because licenses take some time. But as we speak today, it is there everywhere. And Q4 results, notwithstanding good season, has been good in terms of both market share and us beating season.
Got it.
So we are encouraged with Q4. We'll see Q1 and Q2 because sometimes, you can read these data points wrong. But there has been a marked change in our Q4 reading. It has also come at the time, I think Percy had asked me this question a few, 2 quarters ago in one of the calls, saying, when do I expect it to work? And I said, I expect it to work in Feb and March, because that's the amount of time it takes these things. So far, there's nothing that it has gone, which I can say that, no, this hasn't worked yet.
Got it. So in channels, it's all there. It's a matter of now. So 5 to 7 expectation is incorporating all that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And sir, one last question is on Fab as a detergent. At a 99 rupees price point, liquid is a fast-growing market, and obviously you have, again, that you're going with the same price point. What kind of differentiation, because I assume that this will be copied, that price point will become like a main price point for everyone who wants to play that, and I think market leader has also kind of responded to that price point through these various brands. What differentiation or what equity would Fab would be positioned in? Although it's a small 100 crore, 150 crore to going to 250, but what equity that brings to the table that it stands out and not be rendered with any private labels will also mirror that same price point or a strategy?
I think we have 2-3 moats in Fab, and it's just worked out well for us. I think one is as a product moat. It's not that easy to make the Fab product. Okay. We worked for many years actually on this. It's a category that we know actually reasonably well, both as GIL, which is chemicals, and us also in laundry. So our personal view is, and the reason we think that the product is differentiated apart from our own internal testing is that as the RPIs have gone up, the volumes have not gone down, and the market shares and volumes have grown up. So we think that in the finality of things, this has some pricing power. We're now doing what we're doing to grow fast. The packaging has stood out, and it's bold, and somebody was just telling me today that their mother was using it. I just met someone who was telling me she's from Chennai, and her mother uses it, and the packaging is bold. The advertising has really broken clutter in Tamil Nadu. So it's when you go and meet consumers, it's one of the most recalled pieces of advertising. More than the advertising, even the advertising idea of this kind of exaggerated humor and kind of shaming is a funny ad, and consumers like it. So I think we've got a composite mix that we're quite confident of. We've got to hold on to this mix, and I think we've got a long runway of growth here.
Great. All the best, Sudhir. Thank you so much for taking my question.
Abhinish.
I have two questions. My first question is on the advertising strategy. Shifting from Madison to Group M, can such a step lead to 150 bips kind of a saving? If it can lead to, why it was not done earlier? Related questions are, if I see most companies in Q4 call, they are positive on the macro, and you also said exactly same thing. And we have seen Unilever lower the EBITDA margin guidance. And obviously, one reason will be higher advertising intensity. Marico reported top tier volume growth 7%, and they have spent very high advertising versus the sales growth. In that context, what will be your view on advertising intensity going up irrespective of Group M saving 150 bips? And one related question on advertising longer term. We are seeing Jio Hotstar now have very dominant market share in the linear TV, and OTT also. They are very large now versus earlier. So do you see longer term the bargaining power shifting towards much more controlled media asset longer term?
3 questions, let me answer them one by one. One is on the savings. Being a 350 crore advertiser is very different from being a 1,000 crore advertiser. So I think at the core of it, that is one of the reasons it is less to do. I mean, of course, the shift will give us something. So there are three reasons for savings. One is more sophisticated planning and proprietary technology tools. We basically become a serious media player in that sense from a 300. Second is simple scale of media. And third is, of course, the Group M buying power. These should contribute to 100 to 150 bips of margins. It's not merely the movement, but all the 3 put together. I think your second question was on media heat. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think, look, we're right now at about, if I'm not mistaken, 12% ATL in India, which is a pretty good ATL from the 8%, 8.5%, 9% that we've been in the past. We need to think about whether a 12% needs to go to a 14, 15, and what is the return on investment. It's something we need to think a little bit about. Right now, I would still say this probably FY26 is a bit of a stable year. If we see some opportunities come up where we are convinced that further increase in media will lead to further growth, we will do it. We've done it for 2-3 years. We'll probably, kind of pause and take a breath right now and also kind of analyze it. But in general, this is in FMCG a great moat and a great return on investment as a general rule. The general rule is to have high margin products and lots of advertising, and that's the kind of golden formula for FMCG. On what you said on, on the one hand, consolidation is happening. On the other hand, digital is becoming bigger and bigger. Digital, from a 2-player game is also fragmenting. So I'm not I'm not so sure that this is, along with consolidation, so let's say compared to a decade ago, we may end up having the same number of media partners as today simply because of the size and scale of digital expanding and fragmentation within digital. Digital also started off by being 2 partners, now it's become 4 or 5. So I think on balance, we'll end up having the same number of media partners. It's what's happening even in trade, We thought we'll consolidate with 2 modern trade, but then there are 2 quick commerce, 2 e-commerce. So the roundabout, the rough numbers remain the same.
My last question is on Indonesia. So we have seen a disruptive player come in the air freshener. So do you expect FY26 sales growth to be lower than the volume growth? And would you expect a margin pressure because this competitor is fairly large and fairly disruptive, so it can have a prolonged impact. So what is the answer for that?
Yeah, look, we'll have to suck and see and fight that. It is one of my worries in Indonesia. We've been doing well in air. We've got a clear position, and a strong competitor has indeed come in. We'll see. I think the trick in many of these things is to build a strong brand moat. But if pricing has to be done and we are finding it, we will do it. As things stand today, we're probably better off betting on a brand moat and an innovation moat. But if it comes to it, we have to defend market share. There's no question on these categories. You cannot lose market share under any circumstance because these are all long-term cash flows. So our commitment is to maintain and grow market shares there.
Thank you.
Sheila?
Hi. Can I go ahead, Vishal, if it's okay?
I can't see. Oh, yeah, sure, Avi, you can go in, then Sheila.
Yeah, hi. Sudhir over here.
Yeah, hi, Avi.
So 2 questions. First, that slide on GDP growth versus volume was very, interesting. I wanted to get your thoughts on what, in your view, has driven this divergence. In particular, because one of your peers has indicated a thought of moderating their margins going forward. Do you believe that value or lack of value is probably one of the reasons for this, and hence it implies a much lower margin trajectory structurally? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
See, India is an entrepreneurial country, and if companies were over-margining or overpricing, local competitors would have come and taken a lot of share away from the large companies. If one looks at not just us, but large companies in general over the last 7-8 years, I don't think there has been, except in 1 or 2 categories, and that too the disruption has been in e-commerce, any large scale loss of share that I have heard of any consequence, not just within, certainly it's not happened in GCPL, with the exception of incense sticks, but so that is what, so a lot of people ask us saying, are you guys over-margining in India? That's a simple question a lot of people ask us. Our prices in India are not are in fact lower than most parts of the world. So if you take any product and you compare equivalent pricing, it is lower. Structural costs in India do seem to be lower than in many parts of the world. Historic reasons, structural trade margins are lower in India. Media costs, as cost per reach, is actually lower than many countries. Our distribution costs, and because it's a concentrated country with lots of population, is actually not as high as many countries. So India does. So I am a little cautious on this theory of over-margining because I see Indian prices lower than the rest of the world. I don't see big companies lose share. Therefore, it comes to the question, why is it the case? There is a possibility that while this is a GDP curve, that the real curve, and I don't have the data for, has to do with domestic consumption. Now, I have a suspicion that in India over the last 7-8 years, domestic consumption may have lagged GDP growth simply because of a K-curve in terms of the top 20% doing well. The top 20% are at $10,000. At that point, FMCG does slow down. So if the economy is being driven by the top 20%, driven by savings and not by consumption, then you may have a pattern which we're seeing today, where volume growth is slightly lower than GDP growth. To me, these are the 2 possible explanations, either overpricing, but I'm not able to find enough evidence. I'm able to find more evidence on the latter.
Got it, fairly clear. And second, Sudhir, on the volume trajectory that you kind of shared with us and the breakup across categories, if I were to read further and project it over this 3 years hence, when we are hoping to move to double-digit kind of trajectory, would it require HI to be the driver, or is that where the delta would be primarily coming from?
I do hope that HI, I do think that the HI, while I'm still saying I'll be happy for the next few years with 7% volume growth on HI, I do feel in the medium term, HI will be a 10% volume growth, because I do think there's a massive upgradation from incense stick that will happen at some point in India. So I do think that HI will be there, but I also do think that some of these three categories of the future, which is laundry, pet care, and deo fragrances, will also add disproportionate growth in the future. Or these are three massive categories of the future. So a combination of these two is what should get us to that kind of growth.
Sorry, just so that I'm also on the same page, you're essentially saying two things. One, HI, which is expected to be 6-7, should hopefully move up. And two, the share of the new categories going up is what kind of brings the equation to a 10% plus number. Is that the right?
Yeah, I mean, 10% is an aspiration. I wouldn't be unhappy if we can get a 9 volume, but that's really the maths that I'm looking at in the future. And that's what we're building the company towards. So the reason we also set 10% is if you don't set that aspiration, then you're not going to think about getting into things like pet care and getting into things like deodorants, right? Because deodorants is short term, all these things are painful. They're all EPS dilutive in the short term. But in the long term, these are big bets that we're taking for that reason.
Got it. Thanks a lot for this. Thank you very much.
Sheila?
Hi, Sheila.
Thanks. Hi. Thanks for taking my questions. Sudhir, you seem to have underlined the fact that HI growth could be better. Is the confidence coming from the fact that you even mentioned this, the understanding the spreading of season? You talked about the indexing. Is this something we are doing more extensively now versus what we were doing in the past?
Yeah, the kind of confidence is coming from three things. One is incense stick seems to be in the bag. That model seems to be working. It's a question of margins. It's added 100 crores last year. I think we should add another 100 crores this year. The second one is the spreading of season, which we were not doing in the past. So when we do an analysis of previous quarters, we were not spreading season. And it's an important measure for us now. We didn't have the accuracy with which we were measuring season also. So now we have precise tools. We have, in fact, 2 tools, and they talk very well to each other on the season and spreading of season. The third thing is, in the last 4-5 months, our market share gains have been very sharp. So these are the 3 things that give us confidence.
And just to follow up here, the whole endeavor would be to protect market share. And that's the reason you are saying that we'll have to do the balancing act between incense sticks and HI.
No, I don't think the job is to protect market share. See, we will grow market share in premium formats. I'm confident of that. I don't think the HI game is a market share game. The HI game is how do we grow the penetration of premium categories? That's the real game in HI.
Understood. Second question was on global manufacturing, or rather India manufacturing. Is there a thought process here that we would want to shift base to India? And I think to earlier participants' question also, you mentioned that India's structural costs are much lower. And Asif gave the example in Africa also. So are we looking to do that?
I mean, in 2 ways, like the Chile example, and there are 1 or 2 more which are in the offing, which I don't want to talk about because they're confidential. But the Chile example is one example where a high overhead country, we move it. We have to bear extra inventory costs, but on balance, it's worth it. There's another model where India inventory is working, which is if we can move our global model to a India product exports, but marketing model globally, what we're doing on Air Pocket and shampoo hair color, where we make it in India in one of our big factories, ship it across the world, have a sales team there, and run marketing, in fact, to the extent possible from India, from a few people. It's a different spin on the international operation. It's a CapEx overhead light international operation and focusing on differentiated products. That's the second way in which we will get more. So to answer your question, will more of our revenues come from India manufactured products? The answer is probably yes.
And third and final question, Sudhir, a guess from you that next 3 years, if we look at the personal care portfolio, what would be soaps versus non-soaps in terms of the share of revenues?
I mean, I can't imagine soaps growing volumes at more than 2 to 3% over the next 4 to 5 years. In fact, in the past it's grown 3 to 4. I expect it to slow down because there is a movement to liquids that is happening. And in one of those liquid segments we're doing well, which is hand wash. But the other two, we don't have a serious presence there. The rest of the personal care portfolio should grow at double digits in volume terms. So you'll be able to then calculate, today most of our personal care portfolio is soaps. I would say 3/4 or 70% will be soaps, but I think that will grow at 2 to 3 volume, and this 30% should grow at double digit volume. That's how it will change.
Thank you.
Latika?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe a naive question, but just wanted to check, on HI, have you tried to, analyze the category usage as per income classes and try to link that with a higher usage for incense sticks versus more premium formats? Is it that the category usage or the frequencies usage is probably getting lesser in mid-upper income households versus the lower income households? Just trying to understand.
I haven't done this particular analysis whether the category usage is getting reduced in upper income households and increasing in lower income households. I'll do it, but it is very unlikely because 4 to 5% usage growth when the population growth is sub 2% cannot be in a reduction in high income households. Maybe there's an argument which says that low income households are using it far more than high income, but it is very unlikely that high-income households in India. And the reason also is, I'll do the analysis, that Indonesian GDP is 2x of India. Who was telling me, Vivek was telling me, Singapore is a large HI market. HI has nothing, I use HI in my house. I mean, most of you will use HI at seasonality, you'll use either aerosol. So there is no real correlation anywhere that we have seen in the world on HI and usage and income. We see a lot of correlation between HI and temperature. So for example, Rajasthan has the lowest penetration of HI in the country and Bengal has the highest. Because Rajasthan is the least humid geography and the hottest. So that correlation we see. We have not seen, I have not specifically done this per night's usage, which I did this analysis, but the odds are it will be very low. It won't make a difference.
All right. The second question was, this whole thought on moving to liquids and body wash. And there is just trying to understand, do you see that you will be able to capture much of that opportunity using Synthol, or do you think at some time later you would want to explore another brand to grab a larger part of that pie? Because as you just said, soaps is such a large part in your personal care mix. And also a question on hair colors, where you've done extremely well, on the sachet-based formats. But any thoughts on probably thinking about a more premium format at some point?
So to answer your first question, I would venture the fact that we may have to be a little bit more bold in body wash, the way whether, whatever you may think about our deodorant performance and whether we do the right thing buying it, we've certainly got bold moves in place. So, you can see the boldness of those 4 big moves, 3 at least that you've seen. Body wash, we're currently going with 1 move. I suspect we will need a few bolder moves in body wash as we go into the next few years. On hair color, the biggest driver of growth is still going to be powder to creme upgradation. We are nowhere near that journey being finished. So I suspect that for the next 5 to 10 years in India, that is going to be the big driver of value. There will come a time in India where the market will start to premiumize from creme sachets to one is vibrant colors. So that is one things we see, people wearing purple and blue and that kind of stuff. And also to more premium box pack and salon-like things. So that is something that is a 5 to 10 year something. So we got to think about it, get the right opportunity. It's important, but not urgent.
All right. And the last one was on channel mix. I think you just did make a reference of how now we have multiple QC guys and, with 2 large modern trade retailers. But wanted to understand, how is your channel mix for FY25 stood? A lot of your categories are more, urban in nature. clearly they would do very well on some of these organized channel formats. So what is the salience of?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we give out specific salience of channels, but it's not vastly different from what you hear across FMCG companies, which is that quick commerce is booming. Modern trade is doing well, but did slow down last year. And general trade in urban is having a tough time. And for us, rural general trade, that is the only one which is a slight exception for us, has done really well because of the rural van operation program.
Yeah, so my question was more around, your terms of trade with these organized channels, with quick commerce really, coming up very strongly. Have you seen any change in your conversations in terms of your margin profile or?
Quick commerce is generally a good channel in terms of margins for FMCG. A, because it isn't heavily discounted. B, because it sells the modal pack of the category. See, in FMCG, the highest margin pack is the modal pack. So in soaps, let's say if you have a 10 rupee pack, a 100-gram pack, and let's say a 500-gram pack, the odds are that the 100-gram pack will have the highest margins. That's how the pricing is done. This is across categories. And quick commerce doesn't sell very large packs. It doesn't sell very small packs. It sends a modal pack. So for that reason, quick commerce margins tend to be higher than margins elsewhere, even than modern trade, which tends to sell very large packs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone back there, yeah. You want to take the last question and then over lunch?
That's the last question.
Last two questions and then lunch, I think. Okay.
Hi, I had two questions. The first one was on the debate of incense sticks and the premium category you mentioned. If you look at incense sticks, they obviously are considered more efficacious because of burning, and even on a per night basis, fall to be much cheaper. So Sudhir, what's going to be the trigger of this change to the premium categories in HI? Given if you speak of even home care, there were certain drivers which had played out, which led to the premiumization of those categories.
The trigger is after a point, consumers don't like to burn things at home. That has been the trigger for coils across the world. That should be the trigger for incense sticks. But just out of curiosity, since I might as well get you guys to earn your lunch, how many of you here in this room use incense sticks at home? Okay, so that might answer your question, right? So you have two people here. How many of you use any premium format at any point of time in HI in this room? So that answers the question.
Point taken. Second one was on the Africa business. What would be the long-term plans of the dye hair portfolio? Will it be up for evaluation in case the performance doesn't improve, or it is a long-term commitment?
Yeah, so I think, as we said, at this stage, we have kind of hit a milestone in terms of making it profitable. We still are, and in most of the countries, we are the market leader. There is a glide path to further kind of improve the performance from here on. That's what we will do in terms of sequential improvement. Yeah, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you.
Okay. Last question, and I'm happy to answer. Asif and I will be there at lunch. Oh, I have to go now, Sujit? Okay, all right. Sujit says no, so I won't get lunch then?
Okay, we get a few minutes.
Okay, then maybe we'll do, I think I saw one more question, so maybe we'll just do two and then you guys go for lunch.
Yeah, so two questions from my end. The first thing you mentioned that in HI you are doing that seasonality spreading. Now, I don't know what it means. If you could just explain in depth what you mean by that and how it will impact your HI revenue going forward.
So firstly, what does seasonality mean, right? Based on climatic conditions, you can have greater or less mosquito infestation. So for example, if temperature is between A and B, I don't want to mention A and B but let us say it is between A and B, or in North India, or humidity is X to Y, you have higher infestation and lower infestation. So we have what is called a measure of an infestation day and non-infestation day within a month. We can now index this over previous periods and get an index. This correlates extremely well to Google searches on mosquitoes. So we have a double infestation index, which we calculate, which is how are people searching for how do I prevent mosquitoes? So some sets of questions on Google, and it correlates to temperature. So we are now able to correlate that with what happened last year in the same period and then draw up an index. So that's how we can draw up a seasonality index. So for example, the seasonality index in Q4 was a very good season, was 103. or 104, somewhere between 103 and 104. April has been a poor infestation month because February was a very hot February. Temperatures moved up in North India in February itself, and then April became very hot in the first 15 days of April. May, the odds are, from what we read in the weather, and we are now seeing it, that May is likely to be a good infestation month. So we get information on this 20, 30 days in advance based on temperature and this. So we're able to read it, and then we're able to say, okay, are we spreading infestation or not spreading infestation?
So if I understand it correctly, you're basically forecasting how much infestation or how much demand at the end of the day will come in for the coming month. And hence, you're going to be able to have a better production schedule, availability schedule, and lower inventory days in your HI segment. Is that
That's
right?
precisely what we do. We use this for our forecasting in our S&OP process, because otherwise we weren't able to predict HI sales because it was so variable in month. So by the 20th of a month for the next month, we have a reasonably accurate sense of the infestation index. We then have trends on spreading the index, which is basically market share gains, and that's how we forecast the HI for the month.
All right. Second, I wanted to understand is the RCCL acquisition, right? You mentioned that your go-to-market strategy on DOs and everything kind of didn't pan out as you planned when you acquired the entity. Now, taking the lessons from this acquisition, right? Going forward, I'm sure you're going to have one lever of inorganic, which is going to add to you that double-digit aspiration. What lessons have you learned, and how do you think you're going to use them in any future inorganic opportunities?
I think the big lesson I take from the RCCL acquisition, positive and negative, is that one must get into a category if it has a long runway of growth. That's the big vision. If there's a question mark on category, which in this case, by the way, I'm quite happy with, I'm more convinced after getting it that it has runway of growth. What one shouldn't do is too quickly rush into integration. One should probably let things lie for 6 to 9 months till you understand it better, because very quickly we're trying to get business cases moving and EPS accretive. So maybe I was too ambitious on trying to get this EPS accretive in 1 or 2 years. We did get the synergies. By the way, the business case, I mean, what we've done, 100 crores is not a bad EBITDA number, but we pushed very quickly for these synergies. Nothing would have happened if we had let this business for 6 months or a year, continue at 50 crores of EBITDA, learnt the ropes of the business, and then moved in. So the next time around, I would not rush into integration, is my personal lesson from this.
Just to follow up on that, you mentioned in your presentation that you'd spoken to some guy at Danaher, and their playbook is something that maybe you're trying to recreate. So at what stage are you in that process? Is it something that's going to streamline the integration?
The playbook of Danaher, I said what the lesson that Danaher was that they kept the same strategy narrative of what we call the goodness manifesto going for 30 years. That is the lesson. The Danaher roll-up model is not our roll-up model, is not our strategy.
All right, fine.
Great, Vishal.
Last question, Jitendra.
Okay, absolute last. Okay, Jitendra.
We've seen a lot of our peers acquiring small D2C players to try to have a play in some of the emerging categories. Now, if I were to extend personal care into beauty, perhaps that will also be a category or a future category of growth for this country. Your thoughts on that?
No, we are open to it. We are constantly open to acquisition, constantly looking at it. I think one of the boundary conditions is that we don't want to acquire loss-making or negligible EBITDA businesses, because then it's a question mark on business structure, which in RCCL wasn't a negligible EBITDA business, 9-10% EBITDA. So it must have if it has too high EBITDA, you don't get cost savings. If it has too low an EBITDA, there's a question mark on what's the business model. So with this boundary condition, that then starts to reduce the number of companies that you can look at. Certainly, as of now, I feel that I would be very uncomfortable buying a loss-making business from the D2C space. I don't understand it. But if it's a profitable business, if it is in the spaces that we are looking at, then we will certainly look seriously at it.
Great. That brings us to the end of the Q&A. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the participation, and thank you, Sudhir, Asif, and Nisa for their time and thoughts. I'd request all of you to please proceed to lunch.
Please do have lunch. Thank you.